Alright, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 5:35. Welcome everyone. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll go ahead and have an approval. I'll entertain a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
I'll second that. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Rosanna, could you shut my door first?
Oh, sure. Of course.
Oh, thanks for that. I just imagine it's being picked up. Because if they can hear you first, they can hear you get the eyes. Alright, we have one action item before we move into the workshop. And that would be to discuss the REACH Academy. We currently have 21 students enrolled. We have 3 educators. The program will be indebted if we choose to continue. We do not have anticipation of it growing. Prior to losing the principal had reached out to the previous attendees, and we've only secured 21 returning. So we need to determine if we want to continue the program or if we want to terminate it now to allow the 21 students to find an alternative home to do online education, be it through IDLA. Lisa pointed out that Coeur d'Alene has got their online academy up and going, so there are options outside of IDLA, but we need to decide what to do.
Yeah, I don't see that there's 21 on this list. I only see 20, and 2 of them are duplicated, so I'm not sure where 21 is coming from, unless there are additional ones that aren't on the list, but just...
I think you're accurate. When I tried to confirm with her, she said she thinks it might be closer to 30 because there's some returning kids who just haven't signed up, but she hasn't confirmed that. So it's somewhere between 20 and 30.
Yeah, they called every single family. The 19, it sounds like, have confirmed. They have 10 who are hanging out there who they either have not gotten in touch with or they haven't confirmed. But all the rest of them have confirmed that they're coming back to school in person.
And Chair Thompson, I put a email on your desk from Leslie, and it mentions that parents were told not to apply until August, I believe. I don't know why.
Oh.
But, that may skew the numbers.
My understanding is they were told, I don't know that this is true, but they were told that they can't officially apply, but that's why we did that. The same thing we did for Kinder, for the intent to register, we did the same thing for REACH, which is where that spreadsheet came from.
So for all students in the district, registration doesn't start until August 1st because we had to wait till summer school ends to roll over Skyward.
Right.
Move everybody to a new. So they did have the ability to do the intent to return.
Okay.
So in addition to having 3 brand new teachers to REACH, because none of the teachers who helped launch REACH are returning, we also are without an administrator at this point as well.
But they didn't show the quoted text.
Yeah, I don't know what made it very sad.
We needed to undo that.
Can I come in?
Well, my goodness
You're
sakes.
here.
The fisherman is here.
I made a point to be here.
You
Just
can
for you guys.
Awesome.
You
We're
can
so happy to
open
see
the
you.
door now that somebody's not getting ice.
We have the final summer book club event happening at John Brown, and they're doing pizza, and
Oh.
she was getting
Getting
ice for
extra.
water.
Don't mind that she got ice. I didn't realize it was that noisy.
Yeah.
I know.
It must be very warm over there. Yeah.
We do it every year, and they
Yep.
they come.
Everybody
We're
knows.
talking about-
Bring
this
their
is-
little-
we're just sharing
Like
this
this is
around.
on the floor, it's a nice
Yeah.
end of the.
Did you see it, Bob? Well,
Yeah,
he gets.
that's fine.
Okay. We're talking about Reach,
Reach.
right? Reach.
Yeah,
Academy.
and whether we should continue to keep
Do
the
we-
program open
Okay.
or, yeah, close it.
So what would if we didn't do this, what would our recommendation be to these parents and students?
Well, we have IDLA as an option, and they would still be enrolled through Lakeland, so they could come back at semester and they're still Lakeland students if they wanted to. And for each IDLA class has a teacher assigned to the class, so there is instruction, teachers check in. The courses are aligned all the same
Yeah.
state standards, so that's an option. Obviously they could come back to brick and mortar, or Coeur d'Alene has their program running for parents who are. I talked to we have one parent who is her dog, they've participated in the summer book club all 5 years that we've run it, and she just really feels like her daughter is thriving in this online environment and would like to keep her in that, and so we kind of brainstormed what that could look like, and those were the two options that we were able to come up with. So,
We got Bridge too, right?
Bridge is only for juniors and seniors.
Okay.
The other little piece of information, and I'm not trying to sway the board, but we are also struggling to fill classrooms with teachers, and we have 3 teachers who are contracted who are currently assigned to Reach, that we could move into some of those unfilled positions if.
Have we asked if they're willing to do brick and mortar class? Have we?
We have not. I don't think we've talked to them. We
Okay.
didn't want to prematurely
Yeah. No, I
cause
just was curious.
some
Yep.
angst. So.
Right. Did they apply for an online position? So like when they applied, was it specific for the Reach Academy?
I know one for sure was, and
Okay.
she was a teacher for us
Oh,
last
okay,
year
okay.
in the classroom.
Okay.
Two
Um,
were in the classroom, Samantha was as well.
Oh, that's right. So they just liked the idea of working remotely.
Okay.
That worked for their families.
Okay.
But
But one outside person that she specifically applied for Reach,
Okay.
when she's out of district.
Okay. Okay.
I hate saying outside person, she's out
Yeah.
of district.
Yeah. No, gotcha.
That's.
it definitely fills a need for a small niche within our community, but we would be paying, when Brooke figured it out, roughly $10,000 per student for staffing,
As compared to,
a lot less than that.
yeah.
Well, and it's not keeping itself afloat, correct? I mean, that's where we're at.
Our numbers just keep kind of dropping. We started higher last fall, we ended much lower, and then we've got an even lower number
Mhm.
committed to coming back this fall. So the trajectory has definitely been a downward trend since
Yeah,
we
but-
started.
The other factor in this is, and we ran into this last year, with 3 teachers, we said 2 grade levels. Well, the numbers don't evenly work out that way. So I think, the 2-3 is like 5 or 6. I haven't looked at the list
Yeah.
in a while. It's like 5, 6, and then 5 or 6 kids, and then the 4, 5 is like 14, and then the other 6th grade is like 5 or 6, something to that effect. So even that, the numbers are pretty small. So even trying to absorb a situation, and then you're back to the doing 3 grade levels, which that was pretty hard for them to do.
Yeah, we can't do
No,
that.
Right.
that's not fair
Yes.
for teachers.
Yeah.
Right.
Or kids.
Yeah, I
True.
mean,
Right.
given our current financial climate in this country and no at this point, no, I mean, that we only have so much money, right? We have no levies or bonds, or, I mean, I think unfortunately, in my brain, it sort of comes down to a money game, you know, numbers.
Yeah, economically, it is not a feasible operation, basically.
Yeah.
You know.
And we're not at the 400 students that it had a couple of years ago.
Right.
We're, even at the end of last year, we were at 77, and like you were saying, according to the end of the year numbers, our highest numbers were 6th, 7th, and 8th, with 3rd grade being the anomaly, and the lower grades of 12 students, 13 and 13. The others were 3, 5, 4, 9, 6. Yeah, it's sort of a hard decision, but
Yeah, I feel really bad, but you know, I mean, even if the principal had stayed, I think at some point we would have been looking at these numbers. You know.
well, and then we're gonna put them inside of a building that's already, you know, a school within a school kind of concept. And we already know all of the schools are busting at the seams as it is. I don't know what these guys look like next door, but that's where they were gonna go, right?
And to have a dedicated
Right,
section or portion of that school.
right. And I know part of the discussion too was that, there was some question as to if some of these students needed more intervention that wasn't, you know, and that was part of what we heard about going here. But I mean, those students are, I'm sure the district can even help them get those services if they need it, you know.
Yeah, well, they would, if they were enrolled with Lakeland and with doing IDLA courses
Right.
online, they could definitely do some of those IDLA courses online and then come to school for their reading class or their, the specials.
Whatever, yeah,
whatever
whatever it
that
was.
looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, it was 3 teachers and a para. That's what we gave her.
Yeah.
So it's not just, it's 3 teachers and a para, full time.
Okay. So do we need further discussion on the Reach Academy?
Well, I guess I would ask the superintendent what her recommendation would be, given all of those factors.
My recommendation, especially based on the notion that when we started this, that it was going to be budget neutral, would be that at this point in time that we move away from offering the online, unfortunately. And then we will work with those 21 families to try to make sure that they find a home.
Okay.
And if they did IDLA, they still stay connected and they could still be involved in extracurricular, or, I mean, they could still feel like part, if they were doing that anyways with Reach, you know, they would still have that community.
Right.
Well, we have 2 people that registered that came from the Idaho Virtual Academy, so I don't know that they would go back if they came to Reach.
Well, that's different.
It's only
than
one,
the
but yeah.
IDLA, right?
It's
It's the same kid, O'Neill.
Oh, you're right, it is the same
Yeah,
child.
that's one of the
Okay,
ones
so
that I was
just one.
saying was a duplicate.
Yeah, Idaho Virtual and Ideal. Idaho Virtual is actually its own public
Yeah.
school. IDLA actually partners with school districts to offer
Okay,
the same
yeah,
services.
yeah.
Okay. Should we go quieter way? Alright, do we have any further discussion we'd like to have regarding Reach?
Nope, I do not.
I'm good.
Mr. Jones?
I'm happy.
Okay, would anyone like to bring a motion forward?
I move that we no longer support the Breach Academy.
So terminate the program.
Terminate the program, yes.
I'll second that. Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. That brings us into our workshop. Okay. So the first item within the workshop, aside from all of the curriculum, is the sources of strength program.
So just so you guys know, I copied for you everything that Ms. Hamilton sent, so the letters for SOS, so it's all in your packet. I sent it all to you digitally as well, but I printed it so that you can kind of sift through that. So
Who is Miss Hamilton?
she's the counselor, the lead counselor from Athol, but the lead counselor for the district.
Okay.
So everything that I've received regarding SOS is right there, but I also sent it to you guys last week digitally, so.
Now, I assume everyone received an email a while back from a parent
Mm-hmm.
who was questioning. I don't recall now, since I read it, whether it was questioning the total program or that at the elementary level or the secondary level. So I'm just bringing that forward for discussion.
I believe that she was questioning the entire program, and wondering about any ties to critical race theory.
Right.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about with regard to just critical race, is we have a lot of people who've moved into our district from Oregon, Washington, and California, and they're coming from states where critical race theory is being mandated in classrooms, and gender identification and fluidity and some of those things are happening, and they are desperately not wanting that to happen here. We've been using the term SEL in our district for a long time, long before critical race theory, but when we talk about social emotional learning, we're talking about teaching kids how to resolve conflict. We're talking about how to teach first graders how to get involved in a game on a playground. So as we're talking tonight, one of the things I think we need to do just to help our parents is kind of rename what we're doing, because we're not doing social emotional learning in the way that people are aligning that with CRT. So instead of calling it social emotional learning, which is a trigger for a lot of people, I think we need to come up with a different term, because we are truly just teaching kids how to get along with each other and how to regulate their emotions.
But how we're doing that is the question. It's
Right.
not just that we're doing it and that's not what SEL is. It is, and we need to know how our kids are being taught to get along and to think more socially, because that's the question.
Right,
So-
absolutely. What are we using to do it? Yep, and how's it being
Mhm.
taught? So,
So, is this a curriculum? The sources of strength, a curriculum? Because it's teaching something, right?
right.
So, how long have they been using it?
Gosh,
Since 2018.
But it's never been approved by the board.
No.
And I've heard teachers talk about it being pushed on them, you know, counselors and administrators, and, you know, like being forced to use it. And they
heard
pushed
that.
back against it, and, you know, because they don't think it's good or right, and, I don't know. I don't know enough about it, so I mean, you guys are the experts. it doesn't sound like it's that great if they all don't agree. I mean, I think you should,
I think we have one school that hasn't really fully embraced it, and that school hasn't, just because they haven't, well, it happened during COVID. Their training was right when COVID was starting, so they didn't do the training. And their struggle is more about how do we build it into our already busy day. They did have a presentation that one of our high schools did at their school, and the teachers who participated in that actually were pretty excited about what they saw. So I don't think it's at least what I'm hearing. You might be hearing something different. What I have heard is not that they don't agree with it, it's just that they don't know how to fit it in. And I'm not, previously our principals were told everybody's doing it.
told
Yeah.
to do something that wasn't approved by the board.
And that, well, they may not have taken formal action, but there was definitely conversation at the
Right.
board level, and they knew that we had applied for the grant and had received the grant, so.
Was that a federal grant?
No, it was
No,
a
it's a
state
state.
grant through a state-run program, and it was the prior superintendent and a PE teacher. The superintendent supported the PE teacher in writing the grant. The Sources of Strength curriculum itself had one study. The Department of Justice and Administration that looks at all of these throughout the country rated it a yellow, promising, meaning that they would never implement it, and they found that it didn't meet what it was saying it met. The schools that it was implemented in and that it was trialed in were in New York, Georgia, North Dakota, and somewhere else, and most of those schools were a population of lower socioeconomic status. It was targeted toward high-risk youth specifically. It is put forth as a suicide prevention tool. And I guess it does teach that in a certain manner, but what it does do, just like that, I watched the meeting that I missed, the parent that came and talked about the peer leadership. What it does do, and we've had students before us, what it does do is teaches the peers who are chosen by the adults to recognize certain behaviors, flags, triggers, whatever you want to call them, that are concerning, and the peer leaders, their students, would then tell the student, hey, you know, are you all right, or what's going on? No, that's not right. And if the student doesn't respond properly, then they go to the trusted adult and tell the trusted adult. The problem I see with that is that
We're having kids be counselors, and they're not fully
Right.
trained to do that.
So there's just, and the other thing that bothers me about the whole thing is that I've asked over and over. I was the one that originally brought it up because we read about it in the newspaper. The second iteration of it is that constantly all we get is this. We have never ever been allowed to see the program. The person that was put in charge of the program, I understand, was specifically hired to do that, coming from North Idaho Behavioral Health.
I'm not sure who you're talking about.
I don't really want to get into names, but the,
Counselor?
yes. I mean, that's what we were told from the prior administration, and that's how it was presented to us. So I don't understand why every time a parent and there's been other concerns because the people have come to me. There's also been other faith-based organizations that have called the people specifically who never came to anybody. So I don't understand how to interpret the concern I've heard and I've had myself since the very beginning, and it's never brought forth. It seemingly is always hush hush. And I don't know why. I don't know why, if it's that innocuous and it's a great thing and everything. And the other thing is that some of these students who may deal with suicidal ideation or whatever, we all know that there's a lot of other things, a curriculum or friends turning you in, right? And the other thing that the author specifically states is one of his main purposes is to break this code of, what do you call it, a code of silence, I think he called it. It's right in his little synopsis, is that a lot of these kids come from horrific environments, right? They're environments of no food, they're environments of molestation, incest, they're environments of no parent at home, alcoholism, drugs, whatever. I mean, and these are kids I know specifically, and some who have succumbed to that. No amount of curriculum is going to fix that. That's not the issue. But yet I've been told this is what we're trying to combat with that. This is, curriculum doesn't do that.
Right.
You know, and there's a lot of angst about the program, and I know there's both sides, but
We did reach out to the State Department just to see if there is a recommended curriculum, there's an alternative. They won't recommend anything.
yeah. Well, we are not, well, they do have SOS on their website, but along with some others, but we are not mandated to do this. The mandate for suicide prevention, there was three terms, prevention, and postvention, whatever, is all for staff. The only thing that we have to follow would be the content standards for 8th and 9th grade, well 6th through 9th we'll say, but specifically the content standard says at 8th and 9th grade that the student has to be able to demonstrate how they would ask for help, for a help, any reason whatsoever. And then in parentheses, to explain that, the standard says suicide, blah, blah, blah. I don't have it all in front of me. So there is no, the only thing that we have to have policy, we have to have administrative wise, which I'm sure administration already has their manual about how to recognize and all that. Not only that, there were several Idaho Supreme Court lawsuits that dealt exactly with this, that are case law, and whether there is the, sorry, I just lost the word, the, when you're not mandated, but what do you call the word when like you have to report it? I can't think of it.
Mandatory reporting?
Yeah, but that's not it. Anyways, whatever that term is,
Yes.
you know, where a duty, there is no duty to report suicide. So I think it's gone way above and beyond, you know, maybe what original intent was. I don't know, but there's a lot of things I find very concerning about it.
According to Idaho Code 33-136, which is suicide prevention in schools, it states that each public school district shall adopt a policy on student suicide prevention. Such policy shall, at a minimum, address procedures relating to suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. As used in this paragraph, postvention means counseling or other social care given to students after another student's suicide or attempted suicide. To assist school districts in developing policies for student suicide prevention, the State Department of Education shall develop and maintain a model policy or adopt an existing policy as a policy model to serve as a guide for school districts in accordance with this section.
And what is their policy?
I don't know. Whose policy?
The
It
state.
says, yeah,
Oh.
the State Department of Education.
Yeah, they have, it's all on their website, they have, but we have all that, but they do have a complete model policy I mean, if you go to the one page, the State Department of Education, they completely lay out everything, for this. But I mean, even the QPR training, covers the requirement.
Our statutory requirement.
Right,
Yep.
right, even that covers the requirement.
Cause Oh, I was just
What
gonna
was
say.
the obligation for the grant? Was it just to purchase the materials and there wasn't like a future thing of you, to get the grant, you have to continue with this curriculum for 5 years?
Right, no, and there weren't any materials to purchase as far as I know for SOS. Everything's on their website. We just actually asked that question because we hadn't been able to get our hands on like a teacher's edition or anything.
I was like,
so-
is there something that you have in your hands, because I haven't been able to find anything, and they were like, oh, we just, whatever's on the website, we can kind of pull and then we talk through it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, the grant covers the training, and that was what the grant covered, and that was it.
And according to.
So now we,
Go ahead.
So now did we put that back through this year, paying the stipend for those who are teaching the SOS? Anyways, because last year that was the argument I brought up too, was that this thing that was supposed to be neutral, not cost anything, now we were paying, so maybe we didn't do this year, I don't know, I don't remember.
We took that out of the negotiated agreement.
And I don't think we had it in last year, cause I
No.
had an issue with it last year.
Yeah.
But 433-136, suicide prevention in schools, is the title of the statute. It says the State Board of Education shall adopt rules supporting suicide awareness and prevention training each year for public school personnel. That's it.
That's our QPR that we do.
Right, and that's all we're required to do.
Right.
So, I mean, and with respect to the minimum, I personally believe, yeah, we should do whatever we can to help any child that is in that crisis mental state of mind. So I mean, I don't want it to appear that the board
Is insensitive to
doesn't
it,
care.
absolutely, yeah.
Because I mean, to know that we have this program in place and yet we still lost a student to suicide due to bullying, but you know, it's like the curriculum is not going to, it's not the end all be all save all. So,
I just don't understand why the district you have a bunch of counselors with degrees, write your own curriculum or write your own protocols. And then we adopt it. They come before the board and we adopt it. But they all have to agree on the right way to do it, you know, not just one person gets their way, you know. It has to be a group effort, you know. I mean, how many counselors do you have in this district?
At every school and then multiple at the.
Yeah, so why can't they get together and write something up that this is our protocol for suicide awareness?
Well, we do have a protocol for when a staff member believes, based on something that a parent has shared or the student has shared, that there's a possibility of suicidal ideation. There is definitely, that
Right.
protocol already is in place. We have that.
I'm just saying,
As
like,
far as,
training.
As far as like what we're teaching in the classroom,
Or not, or just the way of dealing with it for the district, instead of having, like you said, some of the schools are doing it and one school's not doing it. I mean, it should be a district-wide thing, right? Shouldn't be just, we're doing it over here. It's kinda like policies, you know? Why is this school doing it that way and this school's doing it this way? You know, doesn't make sense. We're the same district. It should be all the way across the board.
Part of the curriculum also teaches the students, I mean, they do, have certain like, games, team building games and all that kind of stuff that they do. So it does do that, and there are some other, parts of the curriculum, so I think part of the intent of it is to teach students how to handle their emotions, right? How to, know that tomorrow's gonna be a new day, you know, if you're anxious, calm down, breathe, all that kind of stuff. And those kinds of things I think are good, right? Take a break, walk away, all that stuff. I'm not too much into the visualization and meditation thing. That's too religious, I think, to be passing on, whether people wanna agree to that or not. I don't know that we should be doing to that extent, visualization and all those things, but, so I understand that, and I think a lot of teachers do that anyways. I mean, I think just classroom management, you
Community
would be
building
doing
stuff.
that,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
our elementary counselors definitely teach the zones of regulation, so that we have colors associated with how kids are feeling, and they're able to talk about what color they are, and then they're taught box breathing and some of those things you're talking about. So we definitely have probably a more cohesive approach at the elementary level, just because the elementary is their first exposure to a school, and so we're teaching them how to be at school. And so when you come from a home where you have a sibling and maybe I'm 5 and my sibling is 2, now I'm in a classroom with 20 other 5-year-olds, and I have to figure out how to share and take turns and use kind words, and sometimes there's frustration. So that's just kind of built into the elementary setting. At the middle and high school, we don't have as much of that. More often what happens is a kiddo who struggles with regulating their emotions ends up meeting regularly with their counselor, and they're doing some counseling.
Right.
School appropriate counseling to help them access their learning, but not a systematic teach to that all kids are seeing. The elementary kind of sets that foundation for them.
You know, I think the other part of this that comes into play, I think, is you know, how much classroom time is spent doing the kinds of things that are set out in the program, and how much does that take away from core curriculum time?
At the secondary level, it doesn't take away from any instructional time. I know at the middle school, the kids who help, at least at Lakeland Middle School, the kids who help kind of plan the events, and it's all about community building. Their events they do that at lunch or after school. Timberlake at high school and Timberlake Middle School, they're not losing instructional time for that either. And they do a lot of, Timberlake Middle School is probably the school that has really embraced this program to the greatest extent, and they do a lot of evening events for families, like a big family dodgeball night, and it's just really about kind of bringing the family together and doing fun things as a family unit to support that nuclear family.
Well, and I don't have a problem with that. That's
Yeah,
great. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
exactly.
That's showing kids community and
Right.
enjoying each other and being.
Well, I don't
around
understand
other
how
people.
establishing that community connection even is part of the SOS program. That doesn't make any sense.
I think it's their intent to kind of bring the families in so they can kind of see what they're working on through SOS. So it's an informational thing, but they always build it around something fun.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You talked about the middle school and the high school. What about the elementary school in terms of time?
I am not the SOS at the elementary schools is new, and so I'm not as familiar with how they're running their SOS program.
There isn't really a separate
Are you
elementary
I keep losing my thought.
so it's just they go in and a teacher invited, and so they do a counseling lesson, and it's kind of embedded in their counseling lesson. So they're less with SOS in the elementary schools, and SOS did come out with a new K2 program, and the elementary counselors said they didn't want it. So they wanted to stick with their second step and felt like everything that they do there was really addressing everything that they needed. So they didn't ask to even look at the new program.
Okay, appreciate that. You know, the reason I bring that point up is over the years, we have become more and more of a social agency than what we used to be, certainly. And as that creeps in, ultimately it takes away from the focus and the time that you spend on core curriculum, and consequently then we begin to see slippage in those other areas. And we have to guard against that, I think, because our core mission is to teach core curriculum. And the other things are supportive and worthwhile to create an atmosphere where our primary goal can be accomplished, is the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree with you that there've been a lot of social issues. It seems like any societal issue ends up eventually on the plates of the teachers.
Right.
And
You shouldn't have to deal with that
Well, I think
all the time.
yeah, I think that is just sort of, where we're at in this day and age, but to turn our focus to that, where the teachers can't teach and we can't provide an educational environment, and we become this social environment, whether it's, everything's so mental health focused, it seems, like every decision is based upon that we can't get our other things done. We can't get curriculum done. We can't get music programs implemented. We can't get all these other things which statutorily we're supposed to be having, because, and I know that it has to be addressed at some level, but I would have to agree that we have to maintain our focus of an educational institution, and that our duty is to provide that thorough education.
Core curriculum education.
Yep. I wish I could remember my other thought that I can't.
Is that like Gunner's blue?
Huh?
Gunner, when he comes over to the house, he says, I feel blue.
Oh, yeah, probably from zones.
So that's how he
Oh, I know
feels.
what it was.
Feeling
The
whatever, how he
implementation.
feels.
We just try to put words to I'm
Okay.
feeling sad, and then talk about it being okay, and
Right.
how,
That was the other thing I think that sort of was also was there is a specific implementation process for this curriculum according to the author, and everybody says, this is how you basically get the buy-in kind of thing, that the district never followed either. I don't know of any district that's followed except for maybe Coeur d'Alene, is now maybe, but the buy-in was specifically, it was supposed to be a whole community-wide presentation. Like there are supposed to be bodies in place, community to have this discussion, according to the author, you have the community discussion, then you have all the staff discussion, and then the students discussion before it's ever even implemented, and that never happened either, which I think just raises more concern, or makes people look at it more, maybe than other things.
What is your recommendation on the second, the Sources of Strength program?
That's a hard one. I don't feel like I know enough. I know what I've seen at the middle school. Those are the two schools where it's been implemented to the greatest extent. Elementary's new. Timberlake High School does a little bit with Sources of Strength, but not much. And Lakeland and Mountain View have not done any. So I know at the two middle schools, those teachers feel pretty strongly about the program and what they see and how they see it benefiting the kids. But what I can't speak to is what the instruction looks like. because I haven't seen it, so I can't.
And we don't have anything here for us to see, correct?
Right, because there is nothing, we
There is.
couldn't put our hands on anything, so.
So it's
That's
the
the
dark,
case,
it's on the
then.
dark web.
Yeah.
So, help me understand, if there's anything out there tangible that we can put our hands on or take a look at, how are staff trained to,
They go to the Sources of Strength website, and on the
just
website,
whatever's on the website?
they call it a field guide, I think is what Shannon just said to us, and so when they go to the field guide, it will show them the different lessons that they could use with the kids.
But she said it's not really lessons, like it might say here's some games, that kind of a thing. But they have to go through a training to do it, and so some of that just comes from the training.
And where and how does that training take place?
When the grant was, submitted, then there's training time set up,
Okay.
and so,
Are we beyond that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go to elementary or any of them, there is curriculum and there is actual lessons, but the lessons are all social. So the lessons might talk about how you feel at home, how you feel today, who you feel safe with, why. They have stories that they go through. I think there's one about the train. I don't know, it's been a while since I looked at it, but there are definitely lessons. This was the same. The author even wrote a nice 2-page letter that was given to the board based upon my bringing it up. Also went,
The author did?
Yep. And they went directly to the State Department of Education, and I was named, and it was quite the ordeal. There you go, the Regulation Railroad, the talking circle. The other thing with this is that, if you get students in a talking circle or a circle, right, and this is just happening in a classroom environment, and you have students that have maybe not the greatest home life or had something happen to them or whatever, they don't want to sit in a circle and talk in front of all their peers about how they feel and what's happened to them. And we could be, not only that, I have to agree, it just puts the teachers or whomever in an awkward position, or even the counselors. I think I just see a lot of,
Well, I see it being just opening a door. If they're
Yeah.
talking about it in front of their peers, it can open the door to bullying, giving bullies ammunition against those kiddos that.
I don't have a lot of problem with some of the concepts, that
Mhm.
are talked about to you, and some of the activities that you might use, given a teachable moment.
right,
But I think that's really the key to it, rather than
Mhm.
saying, we're gonna have a curriculum at such and such a time where everybody's gonna do this thing. I'm not comfortable with that, but I am
Authentic
comfortable
versus
using the
constructive.
ideas and the concepts when you have teachable moments, and that's what most teachers, I think, end up doing, I would hope. If you have kids who have a conflict, all right, you're gonna teach them conflict resolution by doing something with them.
right.
But other than that, you're not gonna spend time talking about conflict resolution, I would suggest.
By the time they get to middle school and high school, they should definitely kind of have an understanding of how
Yeah.
to do that. We
Now,
do
counselors
teach
are a
to
little
it at
different.
elementary.
Counselors might bring 3 students together who have a common problem and, and do some work with them, for example, or something of that sort. But that's basically in a private setting, it's not a classroom setting. So, a little different thing.
I think we should just bring back PE, like a real PE class.
in recesses.
More than.
No, instead of
more
walking the
than-
track, have PE classes that.
Well, we
you-
had schools that took away recess so they could get stuff done. We had little
Yeah.
kids sitting in chairs all day.
Well, that's what I'm saying though,
Yeah.
when you're doing activity, you get oxygen, you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's way more benefits. You feel confident just doing like the presidential fitness awards that we used to do. That was in PE class. You did, you tried to do as many pull-ups or push-ups as you could.
They're still doing that.
Yeah. But I feel like PE classes turned into dodgeball or go walk the track or, not. I don't know. I just think that a lot of this stuff could be avoided if you made kids exercise a little bit more during the day, you know? Not kill them or anything, but, you know, run a mile or something,
That's
walk a mile.
Interesting table there. You pay 25 grand?
Yeah, we
Is that
did.
their pricing?
Yeah. We didn't pay any money. It was all grant money.
Yeah, so they're supposed to do training, according to the author, they're supposed to do training every year. Every school that has it is supposed to have an on-staff trainer that does the training, and they're supposed to follow, I mean, if the whole thing was implemented, there is curriculum and books and all that kind of stuff, so,
And that's never been purchased.
yeah,
$2,000 or
so.
$3,000 for materials?
Per school. We haven't done any of that.
Well, it says curriculum right on there, so it's never been approved, so
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Well, by the state's definition, by statute, it is curriculum, regardless
No, I'm
of.
saying,
Right,
right on their website, it says curriculum.
no, I know, I
And
already had
it's
that
supposed to be approved,
conversation.
so
Right,
you're a troublemaker, Ramona.
I guess. I guess, I don't know.
Right, to be a troublemaker.
Just try to get to the bottom of things, and when people tell me other than I already know, it makes me question why, you know?
Mhm.
So let's take an either or. If we were to approve this program for use, would we be obligated to do the kinds of things that are outlined here in terms of training and curriculum materials and all those costs and that sort of thing?
We haven't been so far. So I would say the answer to that is no. We haven't sought additional training.
So originally through the grant, some of those things were paid for, I assume.
Can you scroll back up a little bit there?
The only
Rosanna?
thing that was paid for
Oh,
through the
down,
grant
little
was
more.
the training, and then we didn't
Little
buy
more.
any of the materials.
Right
Okay.
there.
And the training, did that go as a one person who became the trainer of others?
No, it was just the trainer came in, trained the whole staff.
Okay.
And then in each
who did-
building, there are a couple of people who've taken the lead on the implementation of SOS, and they, as a school, they kind of decide what their focus is going to be for the year.
Okay, now you mentioned, for example, we have at least one elementary school that has not embraced it because of whatever reason. But if they were to want to do that at this
One
point, what
high
would that
school.
entail?
Training,
Training, by whom?
this company.
Yeah,
By
well,
this
the whole
company?
thing, if you go.
So we would have
Uh-huh.
to pay for it then?
I mean.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to
Everything
establish.
they try and say
Yeah.
it isn't, they say right on the website, it
It
is.
is.
Right. That's the problem. Is,
Curriculum is comprised of 12 units containing several lessons each.
mhm.
There's that nice SEL that you were talking about too.
Well, the whole
Right in
thing,
there.
yeah, restorative
here, this
practices,
is-
mindfulness.
This, that, the way they're using SEL is different than the way we use
Right,
SEL.
that's what,
I mean, if we wanna do character building, we should call it that, character building. We're gonna
Mhm.
teach you, make sure that everybody says, oh, excuse me, or,
Mhm.
don't all bombard for the door.
Right,
or-
because
I
we
mean,
are obligated by statute
Yes.
to teach morals.
Right,
So yes, that is,
right.
but this is not that. I mean, it can be, but it's not only that, and that's my concern.
And there's nothing.
We've done a lot of things over the years, I know, teaching good character traits,
Mhm.
teaching manners,
Teaching the 6
Have-
pillars,
have good character,
trustworthiness,
all kinds of things.
integrity.
which is appropriate.
Mhm.
Once again, particularly when you have teachable moments, but, for example, I can remember going by Spirit Lake Elementary and they have all these signs, around the building and
Mhm.
what you're supposed to do to behave yourself properly.
Well, and when we're teaching character, especially at the elementary level, they'll pick
Yeah, no,
a trait
really.
to focus on for the whole month.
Yeah,
And they'll talk about it at the beginning of the month, and then the kids get to practice it for a month, and they get commended when they're actually utilizing or showing, demonstrating that character trait.
And that's,
Yeah, thank you.
show courtesy in the classroom as you,
Now mine can die.
pass quietly from
I
one
won't have to.
location to another and so on and so
I mean,
forth.
it's
I'm
slow
kidding.
down, man.
You know, I mean, those are the things we've always done.
8 hours.
People have tried to put structure to
And
it,
8
I guess,
hours.
in a way that they can make money. That's the way I see it.
79%.
Okay, so do we need to continue discussing any more about sources of strength? Okay.
I don't have it.
Okay. And because this is a workshop, there's no action being
Yeah.
taken on it tonight, so let's move on to the second step elementary guidance curriculum.
And we do have those materials there here for you to look at.
Right there. I do have a question on this. What we received here on the K through 5, it has units 1, 2, 3, and 4 for each grade K through 5. But we also have a child protection unit grade 5, but we don't have that unit over here. So,
That's a separate thing, that second
Okay.
step, that's how Heather explained it to me. And they treat that differently because that's the note, they send out that notification a month in advance to tell parents they're going to do that child protection unit.
okay.
So I think it's in addition to. It's
Okay.
an additional piece of that,
Okay.
is how I
I was just,
understand it.
okay, and are there any other units that aren't targeted on here?
There could be, that's just not what we use.
Okay.
So that's all we
Okay.
use is the program itself and then the protection.
Okay,
Second step could have it, we just don't use it,
okay,
or we haven't purchased it.
okay, gotcha.
This is my understanding.
Okay.
So I thought we changed the whole, idea that, well, this is the first time we're seeing this, but I thought everything within the district was supposed to, they had to make a choice, opt in or opt out. Like if we got away from the whole opt out only thing. Didn't we do that last year?
I think with just some policies, but we haven't changed, I don't think we've changed, we haven't touched everything, I suppose, so.
Okay,
So for example, we did talk about like with the sex ed, which is,
Right.
we've always done, it's definitely an opt-in. If but where we hadn't been doing it consistently was in the high school health class, because it's part of their high school health standards. And, at that level, we hadn't had parents opting into that particular unit, which we discussed in policy and we changed.
right, but I think though when we discussed it, cause even when we went through the whole video thing, it was, they either opt in or they opt out. It's not just one, because if it's just an oversight,
If we didn't have a permission slip saying you got to participate, you didn't participate. It was
No.
how we were doing it, so.
right, but when it's an opt-out, if you don't have the permission slip to opt out, then the assumption is they're opting in.
Right, but this is
So-
not an opt-out. This is truly, at least for the sex ed, it's an opt-in.
Opt-in.
Without a permission slip
Can't go.
from me saying that my
Okay.
daughter could participate in that, she wasn't allowed to watch the video.
Right.
But we don't have that same here, so we send out the letter and invite, it's a month in advance and,
Is that,
And-
is this the letter?
Mhm.
Okay.
and then parents are invited to come, which several do, and they've even been, several have come and watched the actual lesson, and if parents wanna opt out, they 100% can, and to Heather said, only, I think there's single digits that actually have, I mean,
Right.
probably under 5, once they see the lesson, but that is, the child protection unit is the one that they alert parents and invite them in.
Okay.
But the rest of the second step curriculum is separate from that, and there isn't necessarily a letter that goes out, other than the counselor's corner, kind of the newsletters of what they're talking about, and they kind of give, just like the teachers do, this is what we're covering in our lessons for that week.
Okay.
I thought, so we need to bring that before the board, because I thought we decided that everything's a opt-in or opt-out. There's no, because the thing is that parents don't see it all, so we don't have kindergarten here. Oh, here's some sources of strength books.
Oh, they actually printed
The
off
field
Oh, here's
guide
the
and the
elementary
elementary
curriculum.
curriculum.
This right here this is the kindergarten one right here.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, I just saw the first grade thing in there. Oh, and it looks like there's some posters and different stuff in here. Yeah, there's only 4th and 5th grade in here in that box.
Looks like the whole thing is here. Here's 2nd and 3rd grade. So
Okay,
she's
so-
introduced it. Here's grade 3.
Oh, there you go, here's first, oh, here we go,
So
first
it's all
kindergarten.
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
She told me she'd mixed it all. So here is the field guides. I've never seen these before.
I think I stole your sheet. I think I stole that too.
I wanna see what this one is. Oh, see, and here's the other thing is that when it comes with resource material, we don't know what's on that either. Like electronic or download. Oh, they can go online, it looks like, and get stuff. And do training online.
Here's the child protection unit. Box right here.
Okay, thank you. You didn't have to do that, we can.
Oh, good.
Mr. Jones, would you roll back there and grab a book for me?
Which one?
They're the child protection books, they're sitting right on top. I don't care which one.
I'll bring them all.
Oh, you're amazing.
Jink and pick.
Anybody else has one?
There's posters and songs, MP3 songs to stream. And there's a bunch
There
of.
is a no-no song that I really don't like.
Oh,
A no-no song.
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of PDFs too, it looks like, and then there's a bunch of download material.
Just keeping in line with what Bob said, how much time is taken out of elementary academics for implementing second step? Do you know?
30-minute once a week.
Okay.
Only on invite only. It's not a mandatory.
Okay. Invite only being
By
invite
the-
into the classroom? Okay.
From the teacher.
From the
I
teacher.
mean, most of them do it and often stay in there but some teachers, depending on their schedule, it's 20 minutes sometimes,
Okay.
so it's really,
Gotcha.
it's driven
And
by.
just to, I just wanna clarify, a lot of what we're teaching through Second Step actually is aligned with the health standards for the grade
Okay.
levels, so it also is kind of their health time.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
not,
Yeah, a lot of this historic thing has been in the health curriculum.
right,
Yeah.
and so our counselors are helping,
Yeah, a lot of the counselors
With some of the
and teachers
instruction.
tag team together.
we've been teaching these concepts, through our counselors
Mm-hmm.
since I taught first grade. And so those of you who had kids who went through the system, you might remember Care Cat. Counselors used to have a little kitty cat puppet called Care Cat, and that's
There's
how
one
they
in there. There's one
that's
in
how
there.
they delivered their lessons, and it truly has been 31 years that we've
Right.
been teaching these health concepts
Okay.
in counselor and teacher together.
There is one in there, I just chose not to touch it because it's
Oh, we
probably
still
been
are
there
using
for-
Care Cat?
There's one in there. Oh, there's this stuffed something. Pull it out.
That's interesting. Because they state that they don't feel it's appropriate to use anatomical words in reference to body parts, but yet one of the lessons says to
Well,
correctly identify your body parts and name them.
but if you read the second sentence of that paragraph, any reference to anatomy is explained as private body parts, anything your swimsuit would cover, even if the curriculum at time uses more descriptive language. So the curriculum says it, but the teachers don't use those words, they use other words. But
Right, but what I'm saying is on this particular assignment, there's a body, and it says name your body parts and list them off over here. So
hopefully we're
they're
not using
learning
that.
them. Yeah.
Maybe we're not using that lesson
I would
because
think
of this.
not.
That's head, arms, and legs.
Yeah.
That's all I see.
Feet. We got feet.
Feet and hands.
Could have a tummy.
We can have a tummy. We could draw eyeballs on. I just have a hard time with this.
Particularly with the one you're just looking at.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to the societal issues that end up on the plates of teachers.
Yeah, it's just the scenarios, I mean, the scenario stating this to children, I just,
Which one is it?
oh, it's just a me thing, it's not a curriculum thing.
Oh. Yeah, well, no, I don't think that's just a you thing. Okay, I'm gonna read it out loud.
Please do.
Scenarios. Pretend this is your dad's friend trying to touch your private body parts when you're in the bathtub. He tells you it's a secret. Here's another scenario we'll pretend. An older kid touching your private body parts in the changing room after soccer practice. The older kid tells you not to tell. Your older cousin, he likes you to sit on his lap. He rubs his private body parts on yours and tells you not to tell. A friend of the family who babysits you every week. He gives you a toy when you let him touch your private body parts. He tells you not to tell anyone. One of your favorite adults at school touching your private body parts when you're lying down in the nurse's office. The person tells you not to tell. Today you learned another rule. Let's say it together. Never keep secrets about touching. And he goes on, if someone tries to touch you and tells you to keep it a secret, who should you report it to? And you have, adult, mom, teacher, blah, 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 blah. So, this is second grade. While I don't disagree with this scenario, and talking to your children about it, I don't know that that's great for a classroom setting. And especially, I keep thinking about all of this happening in groups, where all your friends are there and, teacher, just how awkward would that be, What was the issue that was in the newspaper? There was a little girl. Can't remember now. It was last year. One of the school districts. I think it was Post Falls. But something like this happened. I can't remember what it was, but it triggered a little girl that was in I think it was a classroom setting. I can't remember now, darn it. But yeah, I think that's quite a lot for second grade. Now this other one I was looking at, it was
and that's, that makes me concerned too. Imagine a kiddo who hasn't come forward and told a parent, and all of a sudden they're having to, to pretend or imagine this happening, and it does trigger. Sure, mom could have opted out, but maybe mom doesn't know that her kiddo has gone through something like that.
Right.
To opt her out of the class.
Yep. Now this one about make sure we don't play with guns, we don't play with fire, make sure you wear your helmet when you ride a bike, all those kinds of things. But I think those conversations, I would hope that parents in this day and age are having that conversation, and I know a lot of them are not, right? I get that, but I don't know that the school's a place to have that. I don't know. Either way, I think that that's definitely something the parents should be aware of to to know that they're, and like you said, they do send home a letter, and the parent can come and opt out if they don't want their child to participate.
Or opt in.
Right. Also, they get the same lessons in kindergarten also.
No,
To the same, are the scenarios the same?
Well, they're using the puppet still, the puppy puppet. All of these are done, I guess, with the puppy puppet. Yeah, so they're teaching here, a hug, they're supposed to tell whether it's safe or unsafe. A hug is safe. Kick is unsafe. Pinch, unsafe. Handshake, safe. Push, unsafe. Slap, unsafe. Holding hands, safe. Safe touches help you feel loved and cared for. Unsafe touches hurt your body. You need to refuse unsafe touches.
So this is with the puppy and a snail. Here are Puppy and Snail with a story about using the ways to stay safe and remembering the touching rule. Snail and I were staying at our neighbor's house last weekend. He had a good friend, or he's a good friend of our family who babysits us sometimes. He's a lot of fun to play with, and Snail says with his head down, but being at his house last weekend wasn't so fun. Puppy, sounding sad, says, yeah, the games he wanted to play were not fun. Snail, while he was giving us a bath before bed, he said we were going to play a touching game. Teacher, what kind of touching game? Snail, he touched Puppy's private body parts. Teacher to students, recognize, is it okay for the man to touch Puppy's private body parts? And then in parentheses, no, it breaks the touching rule. If you agree, put your thumbs up. To Puppy, what happened next? Puppy, I was very uncomfortable. I knew he was breaking the touching rule. Snail, so Puppy and I were assertive. We said no at the same time. Puppy, then I said, don't touch me. Those parts of my body are private. Snail, he stopped touching Puppy, but then he said we'd better keep it a secret or else he wouldn't take us to the park anymore. So this isn't as extensive as the second grade, but this is first grade. Teacher to students, do you think it's okay to keep a secret about someone breaking the touching rule? No, in parentheses. The rule is never keep secrets about touching. Snail, Puppy, what did you do? Puppy, I told my mom. She said, thank you for telling me, Puppy. It's not okay for him to touch your private body parts. I won't let him babysit you again. Teacher, thanks for telling us your story. I'm glad you reported to your mom. It's important never to keep secrets about touching, but it's never too late to report. So that's not as extensive as the second grade. No, but there's a second one.
The letter is an informational letter. It doesn't say anything about opting in or opting out.
We need to add, we need to change that so that it's an opt. If we're gonna keep this part of the program in place, I would recommend that we change that letter so parents opt their kids in, not opt them out.
Yeah, okay.
And then that's in line with the way we're handling the sex education
Right, right.
topics.
I just don't know how they're.
I'm not sure how comfortable some teachers would be using some of that.
Right.
This is apparently not coming from teachers, it's only coming from counselors. Is that correct?
And the counselors have been teaching Safe Touch since I taught first grade. The scenarios are a little bit more explicit than, but we've always talked about your private body parts are the parts that are covered by your bathing suit, and nobody has permission to touch your private body parts.
I think they go off script a little bit and not use it. They don't go into great detail.
Yeah.
I've been present for several of these K up, and they don't go into detail.
don't
They
go
also don't try to
into
call out, they
detail.
just really talk about it with not an open discussion per se. There's not a lot of, back and forth. It's just really like, because not to have kids be pulled into, I have to have a conversation about this, but more of just, you need to be mindful of this. And again, there have been several parents that have set in on it, and then after they do it, they're like, okay, I feel better about this. But I've seen it at Betty Kiefer, I've seen it at Garwood, and I've seen it at Twin, and it's pretty much the same across the board. So.
And when I was principal, in the 5 years I was principal, I had 2 girls who, after these lessons, disclosed privately to the counselor that was happening to her, and so then parents were called in, and they obviously were not aware. So it can be helpful to kids. I
Sure.
think it empowers them to know that the right thing to do is to tell somebody. That's the entire point
Right.
of the lessons.
Right.
We could certainly ask our elementary counselors to look at those scenarios, the scenarios in particular, and maybe rewrite them so that they actually mimic what's being done in the classroom instead of having this language out there, if that was something the board was interested in.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Well, I am curious though, because, I mean, we have the MOU with Kootenai Health because we don't have counselors in every building.
We do.
Well, then why do we have the Kootenai Health MOU?
We have school counselors in every building,
Okay.
not mental health counselors in every building. So our school counselors are not trained mental health therapists.
Okay.
A little bit.
There is there is a
two different-
difference.
yeah.
Their
And I get that.
their counseling is specific to helping kids work through issues they're having to access their learning. And when it becomes more than just that, then there's a conversation with the parents and maybe a recommendation for a referral for outside counseling.
Okay.
And that outside counseling can happen within the
inside.
school
Right.
with them,
A
with
trained
them,
mental
yeah.
health
So
therapist.
then, do we have Kootenai Health at every single school?
You mean Heritage Health?
Or yeah? Heritage
No,
Health, sorry.
so,
Thank you.
the therapist, that's where we ran into problems, that's why we looked at Lake City, because I wanna say it's Athol, there's 2 sites that don't, because they just don't, they can't, the 2 facilities can't find therapists. So at one point we did, and then the turnover, across the nation is happening, and so that's why we looked at trying to come up with another
Okay.
facility to support, because they're trying to find therapists, but at one
Okay.
point we did, but,
Okay.
and I
So-
guess they share buildings, so it's not one, but we
Okay.
try, every building, we try to get every building covered, but as of
Okay.
late, that hasn't happened because there's just not enough therapists out there.
Right.
Why don't we just refer these families outside? I mean, why is that happening in the school? When these kids are pulled out of classrooms or away from their peers, no matter what it's for, whether it's for reading or, counseling or whatever, the kids around them notice that, and it does mark them, and I don't understand where the schools became mental health facilities, why we're even doing that. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're suggesting. On the other hand, I think my understanding is that, if a student is having so many issues, so much trauma, whatever the situation might be, that it's truly inhibiting his ability to function in school.
sure,
Then this is an alternative that we turn to in order to try to curb that back to a situation where he can function properly in school.
oh yeah, and I don't disagree with that, I just don't know
And the
why
question
it's-
is, why is it happening in school?
Right.
Well, there are probably a variety of reasons.
Yeah, because now we have I won't say all, but now you've just introduced this mix into the rest. I just don't know how much disruption or, uneven flow is happening with all these students, especially when we heard that now we've identified so many students that there's this waiting list they can't even fill, which is even more concerning to me. Like, why do we have all these students who need not just counseling, but the behavioral health, Kootenai behavioral health? I don't know. It's just
The answer to that is societal, in all honesty. The changes in society have brought about that kind of behavior difficulty
Right.
in younger kids.
right, yeah, no, and I absolutely agree. I think social media and all kinds of things have played into that and caused more anxiety and stress and anything than, but
I would just say, as far as where you said marking kids, our kids are moving from classroom to classroom so often anymore that nobody really knows where anybody's going.
Mm-hmm.
Because our teachers are flexing, their kids are grouping, they go to different teachers all the time. The one thing that having the Heritage Health in the buildings does help us with, one, for our families who are low socioeconomic status, who struggle with just
Getting
someone there, it allows for that. And then we've also found that for those kids who are going to, even if we didn't have it and they were going to continue to go to counseling, they're missing less instructional time because we don't have the transportation to, picking the kids up a half hour before the appointment so they can take them to the appointment and a half hour back.
And we
So that
absolutely
has
have
helped.
those kids that are,
Oh, yeah.
leaving Wednesday at 1 because of, and I don't know if I'm accurate, this is what I was told.
Sure.
This started from parents asking, so parents would come and say, I'm struggling, my kid needs this stuff, I'm struggling, and with us not having mental health therapists and our counselors being school counselors. And so then Heritage Health kind of started and was willing to help out parents and come to the school site. The kids were always there. It was just, this was a way to help those families, not necessarily orchestrated by the school. But again, I wasn't a part of any of those conversations, but that's my understanding, is this was more bred
Well,
from
and
parents.
I imagine parents that don't have the privilege to be able to leave work to come pick up kiddo from school, take
Or
them to counseling,
grandparents.
and don't have the ability to
do that.
to transport kiddo, during the week
Right.
when Heritage Health would be open or any other counseling
Right.
service, business hours.
So there
It's
are,
kind of
there
like
are
our-
some trade-offs then,
Mhm.
in that regard, and I always kind of go back to the crux of the thing. If we can assist in ways that helps the student become better prepared to work in school, then okay. If we're doing it for some other reason, then we ought not be doing it,
Right.
because it should focus on whether or not we're helping the kid function properly in school, so we can stay with the core of the program.
It's really I know it's offering mental health therapy, which is different, but as far as the concept of why it's at the school, we have orthodontists who bring their mobile orthodontic
Right.
unit to
Right.
the school to take care of the kids' braces tightening on campus, and parents sign off and allow them to do that. So
See, and that's an instance where I would say, okay, that's fine after school. I would not accept doing that during school time.
well, if we don't allow that, the parents are coming and picking them up and they're missing instructional
Yeah.
time. It's a different world,
That's
Mr. Jones. It's a
battle
different world.
constantly, but I just go back to my original premise, and that is that if tightening a kid's braces helps him function better in school, okay, but I don't see how that would happen.
Well, there's a wire.
And they're not paying attention because this hurts, and I can't focus on what I'm supposed to be
That was
learning because
That was
this
an
hurts.
outlier.
You just clip it off. Save you dollars.
That just hurts me.
Yeah.
So the
Just take care of it
concept,
now.
I just
Sound
have
like
to
my
answer
husband.
that. The concept is called community school, and the concept was sort of around, but actually pushed as a platform during the federal administration prior to the last one we just had, so that would have been during the Obama-Biden years. And the idea was that everything happens at the school. Mental health happens, dental happens, everything, that the school becomes the family unit, and the child relies more on the school becomes their hub, their family hub, and the family and the parent is sort of pushed off. And I mean, anybody can look it up and read about it, and that's what we've watched happen little by little by little.
Little by little,
Yeah, exactly. And that's it is what it is, and that's part of my concern is that, when are we going to be focus, like you're saying, orthodontics thing, what I think is cool, that's great. I remember when I was a kid, the dentist would come and we'd all chew the orange or red tablets.
yeah.
Right, so you could learn
You're
to
not
brush your
rushing,
teeth,
right?
all those kind of things, I get all that, but I would have to agree with you too, that our society has become so much dependent upon the school and how much time are they losing, and I know they're picking up the kid and leaving, but the kid's still leaving. You know, I mean, I think we have to draw a line somewhere to say, we're gonna do this and we're gonna,
Yeah, we can't do all things
Right.
for all folks.
right,
You know, we just can't do that, and then suffer with the criticism of why can't Johnny read?
right,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
I remember, so one of my kids had problems, and the counselor called me, and I took him to the doctor. Why are they going there?
Yeah, well, there
If
are.
it's that important,
Right,
then you stop what you're doing, you get off work and go take your kid to the emergency room and, or Kootenai Health or whatever, and then they get a look at it and they go, well, I don't belong there, and you get scared and go back to school.
That
You
still
know?
happens, that still happens.
Yeah, but
yeah,
Not all parents come.
yeah, and there
they
are.
need to be beat then.
Yeah.
This
I don't
one is
want that.
parental
don't-
responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They
And we-
need
yeah.
they need counseling.
We do have those students too in the district that are living with family members or grandparents or, you know,
I know.
trying to, so I do know that, but I think, I guess another question I have is that that's sort of, those scenarios like I just mentioned have been elevated to the norm, and I'm just not convinced by the census nor any other thing we see happening in our community anymore that that is the norm. It may have been the norm once upon a time, but I mean, we've even losing title status of our schools. I mean, the median income in our little area has skyrocketed. I mean, I don't think that's the norm, and I think we've lived under that being the norm so long that we still function that way. I mean, I read online some of the teacher sites where they can go and ask to fund a project or whatever, and almost every one of them, it makes me want to cry, start out with how they are teaching at this rural, impoverished school where, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just not true anymore. It's just not true about our community anymore. So I think that's another thing we really need to understand, is that our norm still? You know, because I don't think it is.
Well, we always bend to the few. That's the problem. You know, like the school thing that we discussed
Reach.
earlier, the
Mhm.
reach.
Mhm.
We cater to a small group of people. You just don't do that.
Mhm.
You don't. Just because you want something doesn't mean everybody else has to pay for it.
Yeah.
You know.
Right, right. One other thing, and then I'll lay this aside, but here's another, and this lesson isn't necessarily bad. Of course, it's another private body part thing, but the thing, here's what the statement says. So first, a big person should never. It says, who is an example of a bigger person? It says mom, dad, teacher, my big sister, uncle, babysitter. But then down here, it says a bigger person, it goes into, you know, how to identify a bigger person, and then it says, you know, should never touch your body parts except to keep you healthy. So I don't know that that's.
Yeah, I saw a little conflict in that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways, I just think the parents, my thing is this, is that I just think the parents need to be aware, and if the parents sign off on it,
Fine.
yeah, I mean, they're
Mhm.
not my children, right? I can't make that decision, and that's not what I try to do, but I am very much for the parent being aware, sign the form, you signed the form, right? And then if the parent comes to us and says, hey,
My kid learned this or came home and told me about this.
right, but we never, you know, sent the form, then, you know, shame on us kind of thing. And then if we do have the parents, like we've had lately, emailing or what have you to, you know, voice their opposition to a certain thing or what have you. I think we do need to pay attention to that and not try and explain it away to them, you know, or cause them to understand, because you know the professionals think that this is the way it should be, because once again the bottom line is it's not our kids, you know, it's their children that they entrust in the district's care every day. And I think most people see it as a safe place to be, right, is school.
Well, that's the intent. It's
Right.
supposed to be a safe place.
Right.
So outside of the personal body safety, is there anything in this program that causes you any stress or anxiety? Because the rest of these lessons that I'm looking at do align with the health standards.
I don't know, I mean, I'd have to go through and read through everything, but anything off of, well, I guess I didn't, how did I miss that? The feelings and the,
Based on the outline, I don't have any
Yeah.
real heartburn, but, you know, that's without looking at the specifics of what might actually be discussed in some instances.
yeah.
Right.
And if we continue to approach these topics as a part of the health curriculum, I find that appropriate.
Well, the parents have access to the curriculum and they sign off on it. And
And we have policy that says if there's any lesson in here that a
No
parent
way.
doesn't want their kids to participate in, they can opt them out, and we can
Right.
find an alternative lesson for them. So that's always there also.
Yeah, I didn't see that in that book. We had the parent who had raised the concern about safe touch being
The doctor.
a shot from the doctor. Yeah, but I didn't see that in there. So I mean, there's all kinds of things. I don't know that
Well, I think what they were saying, because I think it actually was based on what you just read aloud, that a big person can touch your private body parts if they're keeping you healthy. And the doctor was an example of somebody
Yeah.
who might have to do that, and the parent didn't feel like that was appropriate, because she
Yeah.
didn't feel like she would want a doctor touching her 5-year-old daughter or whatever. So that was what she was raising was.
She talked
No,
about
there was one
specifically
about the
about the
vaccination.
vaccines,
Oh.
yeah,
and that a shot from the doctor is a safe touch. And in their family, it's not, because they don't believe in vaccinations.
Oh.
So that was
Okay, so
that was a different.
That was different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you know, that's the thing is, I don't know, you know, I mean, there's just so much, right? You can't read every little thing, you can't know every little thing. I mean, I don't know that the parents can either, you know, so. I
They
guess-
certainly though could come in and read through the
Right.
teacher's edition,
Right.
and kind of scan the lessons and see if there's anything that's.
This
Yeah.
will all be available. We'll send out a Skylar, and this will be available for 30 days. And then we even talked about at the beginning of every year, specifically to what the counselors use and health standards, sending that out of just like, hey, please come to you. Because as new people are coming in, just not knowing that piece,
Right.
like they
Yeah.
know what their teachers are using, and so that it's just some awareness specific to that of,
Understand
hey,
what the standards
yeah.
are and how we compare to how
Right.
we're teaching.
So
those
it's just an
standards.
annual thing we kind of send out of please come view, so not only do they have this, but then at the school site they have the same. But
Oh, I was.
Sorry.
I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Is there music in your head going on?
She was trying to see you.
I was
and
trying
then-
to see you because you were talking and Dave was
I
doing
was
this,
looking
and
around.
I was like.
Did you notice the new chairs, Dave?
Yeah, I kind of was like, this is this
Are
new?
these
My
more
back feels
comfortable for your
better?
back?
I need a
For my
lumbar-
back, yes. I don't know
lumbar
that they're any
support.
better for my bum though.
Yeah.
I'll just have to start bringing a pillow.
I used to.
No, because our meetings aren't as long anymore, so we
No,
don't need
they're
to worry
not.
about it.
Well, do we need to continue talking about second step? Because we do need to move on to
I think I'm good.
Or not IRI.
Already?
I do think
Already.
the parents need, like, notice, like you were saying, but I think it needs to be more than just the Sky Alert or whatever it needs to be. I think we need, this type of thing needs to be, in my opinion, out there so everybody's aware, because they're just not aware, or they don't understand
I
what's
actually,
going on.
when you
or-
raised that question, I did some thinking and suggested to Michelle that, because we're going to do those quarterly flyers
Mhm.
home,
Mhm.
that, at the end of the school year, we highlight the budget workshop date is this date, and it's from this time to this time, and this is an opportunity for patrons to interact with the board and ask questions about the budget.
Right.
And the curriculum workshop is on this date, so if we could schedule those prior to the end of the school year, that will go out to every single home in the district.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, those are things that have to be done on an annual basis anyway, so
Right.
I don't know why we couldn't just pick a date and say this is when it happens,
Absolutely.
and then everybody sorta knows.
Yep, we can make that
Right.
kind
That's
of a big part of the
Yeah,
flyer.
that's a great plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I already actually have put it under, we have a kind of an ongoing document that we're using, and under the fourth quarter newsletter home, those are the top two bullets, so.
Cool,
it won't be
good,
forgotten.
perfect. And I think that's what a lot of it is, it's just a matter of communicating, you know, with
Just
the,
making them aware.
right,
Mhm.
Mhm.
with the community, you know,
Yeah.
not just the parents, but everybody, because everybody talks about schools now, you know, nobody used to pay attention to half of it, but they do now.
Mhm.
I shouldn't say nobody, because there were people in years gone by that did come look at the curriculum
Mhm.
and raise concern.
So it'd be good to move on to iReady.
I am.
Mhm.
So in front of you, and I can pull some of the books, but I mixed them in because I needed so that they would be there. I gave you a list of everything that was flagged. This is a list of the stories, and so if you clicked on those links, you actually got to see the story, and the books are here, but this is a list of the things that were specifically flagged. And then why they were flagged and the comments, because like there's two books that there's a lot of things marked, and it was done by one person, and so I just wanted you to see all of them so that you can kind of see. And the other thing I gave you is what our curriculum review process was, and so everybody that asked to participate, we gave them 3 different colors and said mark them based on that, and please read every single box, letter, word, story, everything. I did alert iReady that we were doing this, and they have come back for grades 3, 4, and 5 and changed several of the stories. I would have had those for you, but I didn't get them until yesterday, and then I didn't get back until last night. So I did check several of the stories, and several of them have been changed. At this point, there was probably only 3 I would recommend that we just no-go. They're not good stories. We don't have them. The other ones, it could be a parent notification kind of thing, but I just wanted you guys to see what people wrote, and then you had a copy of all of the stories, and we can absolutely pull some of the books so you can look at the stories in real life. I don't know.
What is the color coding?
So color, bright pink was CRT. Orange was sexual or inappropriate content, and then blue was just overall concerns. So like if you look at the top, there's a couple of first grade books that are just accompanying kind of mentor text to go with first grade. And there were some discussions like with earthworms and with butterflies and moths, and it talks about mating. And so the mom that read it, she just said, I don't know that'd be appropriate for first grade, but some other people would feel like it's fine. So we just marked it as a, that could be, there's a story that was highlighted because it talks about reality, like social media stuff. Nothing bad, but it just talks about it. And so, we tried to just really be critical of it. Could somebody else see this differently? So, and I reached out to everybody that's on the curriculum committee, and then parents that I spoke to just on the side, I asked them to participate. So I tried to get as many people as I could to read the material.
I just want to say this to both you and Lisa, I really appreciate all the work and all the time and all the effort of all this, very, very much so. So I know it was a lot, and everybody that helped, I know it just doesn't pop together, and it is adding to your already long day, so thank you.
It was I feel like this was a really good process that Lynn put together. One, I think it sends the message to the parents that we do really value your feedback, and we're interested in what you think, and we don't want to make these decisions in a vacuum.
Right.
And so I also really appreciate the time that people put into reading these materials and writing the notes.
Absolutely.
Sticky
Yep.
notes.
And they read everything, like from cover to cover, even little boxes that had, teacher note kind of a thing, because there were definitely comments. So,
and this may be a process that we are going to need to use moving forward as we're adopting new textbooks, because as we've talked about before, we're never going to be able to adopt a textbook that doesn't have elements of CRT or some of these other things that we're trying not
Unless
to
we
have.
find discarded material.
Right. Something that was written prior to 2020. So it would be helpful once we identified a program that we were going to adopt to kind of go through the same process and have parents help us identify if there are things within that textbook that we either want parents to opt into, or that as a district we just say this isn't appropriate and we're not going to use it.
Did you happen to read any of these marked things? Did you read the butterfly one?
I did.
That's depending on the tone you used when you read it, it seems kind of erotic. I mean, that's like, whoa, it's for first grade. Would you like me to read it to you, Randy?
No.
What was orange again?
Orange is
Sexual.
Sexual
or
or just inappropriate.
Developmentally inappropriate.
And I gave you, Ramona, a copy of this that has the color coding on there, so
Okay.
I know I gave you guys lots of papers, but I just wanted to.
No, that's fine. Oh, okay, I see
Paper
right
is
here.
my friend.
Orange,
So-
blue, awesome.
So
Okay,
Just
thank
so you know, the Naomi's 2, which is the start of the 4th grade one, it's right here. That story was removed, and it was marked, and it's been completely removed, and I double checked. In the new reading manual, it's no longer there, they completely took it out.
Okay.
So we aren't the only district that
Right.
has been raising some concerns, and this textbook company has at least been responsive to those, so.
And I feel like I'm on a texting basis with the main person, and so I've just been really transparent, and so have some of the other districts, and so they knew we were going through this process, and I said, even if it's just for us, we're literally going to rip some of these stories out if they're not fixed, so. The one story that I think is really inappropriate that I would say I would love for us to just say no-go on is The Last Shot. And the parent said OMG sexual. There's a reference of, and it sounds like it's kind of just trash talking between 2 kids in a basketball game, but
It's highly inappropriate.
it's really inappropriate. So that to me would be it's not even a parent op, it's just no, we're not doing it.
Okay.
It's just a short little paragraph, but it's super inappropriate.
Which one is it, Dr. Cody?
It's a Naomi's 2. I'm sorry, it's The Last Shot.
The last shot.
Naomi's 2 was removed. The Last Shot, I would say no. I mean, again, I know it's not my decision, but it's not appropriate. The other one, so the entire grade 5, the whole unit 5, which is all of the kind of slavery unit, they've revamped all of the stories. The one that everybody was really concerned about was resisting slavery, and they've made some significant changes. I just haven't had a chance to do word by word yet, cause I just
I was gonna ask about that one.
so that would be another one if it's not, and I just, again, haven't had a chance. I started it but I didn't get them until today, cause they didn't come until yesterday. Cause I asked her to send me, if you have new books, I would like to see them, and I'd actually like the parents then to read those 3 new books, because, you know, I mean, I know some of them are the same and they've highlighted what was changed, but you really do need to say word by word. But specifically in this story, what they took out is where it specifically says white people, and it said that probably 4 or 5 times. They took that verbiage out, but I haven't been able to word by word it yet, so that would be another one that I think we say no unless it is changed radically.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
the one that was, part of it was posted online?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
That one definitely needed change.
yeah.
What's the name of that one, Doctor?
It is Resisting Slavery. And I will read it line by line, and I can always just bring that excerpt when we have it the next time we meet, but.
Wow, they really wanted to emphasize that, didn't they? 5th grade liberty and justice, not all caps,
Not
for all.
Mhm.
Okay.
But that is, so the new book, they've changed multiple stories in that entire unit 5, so it's 7 or 8 or 9 stories they changed. I just haven't had a chance to.
I'm
So-
trying to find this one, I wanna look to see what it is, but I'm not. It says 5th grade.
Are most companies, do they change stuff like this, or do they just say, here, you get what you get?
And don't throw a fit.
And that's
Okay.
what it, initially when I told them, you know, they were like, well, we do Washington, Montana, and I just said, well, I'm just telling you, we may not adopt it because the entire state of Idaho is not supposed to be doing CRT, so, if there are stories, we will flag them and remove them, and they have been really responsive. Like, I again, have been super communicative about the concerns, and she was super interested in the stories that we flagged, so I've communicated to them, these are all, and the one story that ended up on social media, I sent that to her, like, how is this not, like, CRT?
Yeah.
You know, so they have been really responsive, but that's not normal. I mean, I don't anticipate that several of those science companies, when we do a science adoption, are gonna be that accommodating.
Right.
Right.
We could be wrong, I could be wrong, but I don't anticipate that, that's not normal.
The the last shot is a poem. And yes, it needs to be pulled.
Oh, yeah,
That's
right.
horrid.
I think, is that the one that Chelsea?
Worse than the kite runner? I should've read that out loud.
This one, I haven't read The Kite Runner, but this one I read it and I got through 2 lines and I was like, I feel icky and I need to take a shower. And it's a 4th grade story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
Cool.
look at this. Read the words.
Please don't read them out loud. They're,
but people watching don't know what it says.
oh, this is true.
What about this one on the hypocrisy of American slavery? Have you looked at that?
Page 2 is worse.
It's 4 or 5.
To the 8th grade?
It's 4th.
Fourth.
It's the last one.
I didn't read through all of it. The feedback was that it's
Like that.
fine, but it is from their point of view.
McNasty.
Yeah, that's, the problem I have, you know, everybody's prepared to acknowledge we had slavery and it's not a good thing. But the piece of that seems to me always left
can't
out
find
is,
this.
it wasn't only, you know, slavery in the South that was an issue. Long before white man ever came to this
Page
country,
2 is
there were
worse.
slaves. The Indians used to sell slaves back and forth from one tribe to another for eons. That rarely ever gets talked about, and what the meaning of that was, for example,
Or the Chinese.
and how that fits into the
Or
whole
the Irish.
discussion.
Yep.
Are you reading The Last Shot?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's terrible. I read it and because I didn't see it before, and so when I read it, I was like, oh, I can't even.
Page 2 is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, that is definitely sexualized.
I wouldn't even want high school kids to read that.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, what, I guess the thing is too,
It's
is like,
over.
what
Let's break it apart.
educational,
That's what we asked.
yeah.
yeah, nothing.
Basically,
What's the
What are we-
point?
what are we
basically
learning
you go
from
through
this?
a book
Right.
and ask.
Oh, yeah, no, I just like,
As a
stanza 3, what is the author saying? It's like, let's not go there.
Mhm.
As a teacher, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
No. And then if it's in the book and the book goes home and the parents are like, what?
Or you have a new teacher who thinks that they need to just turn
Teach
the
it.
page and
Yeah.
you teach everything that's in the book.
Right.
Yeah, so, but the nice thing about these books is that they are consumable and it's really easy to use a box cutter or whatever and slice out the pages we don't want them to have access to.
And in my mind, if we move forward with this, that's part of the, first staff meeting back. Please remove this story.
Take the story out.
Yeah, that's intense.
The other, I guess, and Lisa and I haven't really talked about this, but I just think it back to the transparency piece, when we get to those units, like the 5th grade one, the whole slavery unit, it's like 8 or 9 stories. No reason why you can't just do a parent notification of that we're gonna be entering into this, parents can come view it, just to make sure that people are feeling comfortable about it.
I don't mind like the earthworm story. I just don't know if it's appropriate for 1st grade. It's not a bad story. I'm learning a few things about worms, but
5th grade.
4th grade.
What are you learning?
how they mate.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't know, but
All you have to do is go out at night with your flashlight.
Yeah.
Water the lawn really well.
I don't wish to do that. But I'm reading about it in a book,
Okay.
and it's
And they're
What,
right there, if you
yeah.
wanna see them.
There's a whole bunch of stuff here on what appears to be climate change issues. And there are a lot of interesting comments. What's your take on that?
I don't know. I read several of those and I just, from a teaching standpoint, I feel like you're gonna talk about the science side of it and you're gonna give all the options. I don't necessarily know that kids have enough background to hear an agenda of some kind. Like the teacher's just gonna present it as, there's water pollution. They're not gonna get into the minutia of what political party you're on and those kinds of things. Some of these stories, it just talks about it, and so I don't know that kids or a teacher will read it through that lens.
Just reading the comments, it sounds like the ratings are themselves slanted.
From this
and-
person's perspective, they are.
Yeah, and does that come through to an extent that, maybe we're doing a little bit of indoctrination type stuff?
From this person's perspective, I would say he would say that.
Is this mostly from one person?
That's all from one person.
Oh, okay.
There was only one person that read 5th grade.
okay. So the Naomi's 2 has been pulled, correct?
Yep, it's been removed. I would still double check that though, if the new book she sent me, it's not in there, but I would verify that.
Were there any other stories that were pulled that had been flagged that you're aware of?
I have this,
Yeah, we can.
nope, that's the only one. That was completely just, they removed the
Okay.
entire passage, and then they made edits to, the entire racial history, for grade 3, unit 4, and then the whole grade 5, unit 5. So they didn't pull any stories, but they did a re-edit for grade 3 and grade 5.
Okay.
So,
The liberty and justice not for all.
so which one?
The unit 5.
Yeah, unit 5, liberty and justice not for all. Is definitely, CRT Project 1619, I mean, it's all woven right in the first number 1 and number 2. To begin with, the US Constitution didn't name white people or men only. And it states that it does, that it specifically says that, yeah, we can't teach that, it's not.
That's part of what was changed though, so now our work is to go in and see what the news stories look like. And if they've been sufficiently changed.
So, the ones that are in bright pink, or whatever that color is,
Yeah.
which
Or
are
CRT.
indicative of some CRT elements,
Mhm.
are we excluding those or including those?
Or we just need to fight, are we, I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't mean to cut you off, go
That's all
ahead.
right. I'm just wondering out loud.
Yeah.
So like here where they don't have a comment, they just have a question.
Yeah, they just weren't sure if the story could be a concern. I mean, I asked everybody to be really critical through that lens, and so they marked it.
So there looks like 4 where whoever read those said they didn't have a comment, they just weren't quite sure that there wasn't CRT in it. So it wasn't so blatantly obvious to that person that they were able to identify what it was, but they weren't sure.
And kind of our review process, again, we can change this, but what we talked about is for a level 1, we would say this is a parent notification. It's just gonna go out prior to that lesson being taught. Level 2 would be an opt-in or an opt-out, whichever, and then a level 3 would be a complete removal. So that we had a varying kind of.
Okay.
But, I mean, remember, only 1 or 2 people have read. I mean, we did all of the math,
Yeah.
we did all of the reading, we did all of the writing, so this is not a proportionate amount of, it's 1 or 2 people reading, like, 1 person read the entire 5th grade reading, math, and writing. You know, 1 or 2 people read 3rd grade, so I didn't have enough volunteers to have 10 people read each of them, so
Sure,
this is
yeah.
reflective of a couple of opinions. So.
But I would assume that, you know, those that are flagged for one reason or another, you go back and take a second look at. Yeah.
Even if it's grade book.
I am, and I can't find any of this, and it's driving me nuts.
What are you
because,
looking for?
The social poet, Diego Rivera, Keeping the Music Alive, all these, I cannot find it.
Well, they might have changed the stories, you might have the new book, is that the flagged book? Or is it does it have any stickies?
No, it was just laying
So
over
you have
there.
you have the new one.
Okay, so the new one still
The
has
new one hasn't.
the Justice for All story in it.
Well, you should, so you have the other 5th grade one with all the.
Oh, there's the Music Alive, okay. So which way do I go for Music Alive?
You must have the 5th grade one with all the sticky notes.
I don't have any books.
No,
No, you don't have it? Oh,
no.
you have the teacher's edition, so where'd the 5th grade one go?
Did we?
Is that it in the
Oh yeah, we
grade?
got them.
This is the 4th grade, or this is the 5th grade writing, but the 5th grade one, oh, maybe I put it over here?
It had a lot of sticky notes.
Yeah, it's not there.
Oh, here it is, okay, I found the Diego Rivera,
So maybe
okay, so
somebody
one
borrowed
more.
it to look at it.
Okay.
I'm getting there, they're,
So you have the new
their
material.
table of contents just isn't very,
The sticky one.
there it is, okay. 29.
That's interesting, cause the comment is revolutionary, who is Diego Rivera, and it states, during the Great Depression, many American artists were commissioned to paint murals in public buildings.
I think they knew the answer to the question, that's why they asked it.
some famous muralists from Mexico. Perhaps the most famous Mexican muralist of all was Diego Rivera. So it says who he is in the story. I mean, I don't understand what that.
Well, there's more to the story, and it does talk about him being a revolutionary.
He was a great storyteller, according to the story.
So what did you say about this?
Okay. Well, it says he often painted revolutionary events and leaders who were fighting to change things in Mexico, so people there would have more rights and freedom.
But that's not true. He left
He left to go to Europe to learn how to paint, and then he went back to Europe.
after the fighting was done.
Well, he doesn't go
He was a
exactly-
dodger. Well, that's my whole point of the story is that,
It's inaccurate.
yeah. And he was a revolutionary, but he was a communist revolutionary, socialist.
Story doesn't mention that.
Nope, I know. I think that's the point. I think that's why I think when they wrote revolutionary, who is Diego Rivera, at first I thought, what do you mean you don't know who Diego Rivera is? But I think I get the question was more rhetorical kind of thing. Is I think they knew the answer. That's why they brought it out. But I don't know on the social poet, social hard work, social, and it says hardworking quote immigrants. Did he fought and died for workers' rights? He didn't. So it's about Woody Guthrie.
Well, I mean, one thing oopsie, see, I need a new one. I changed my lanyard. It's to the safety conference that we went to. It was very interesting.
That's not a safety first lanyard. It
Oh,
doesn't have a breakaway, so you could hang yourself with that. It's not OSHA approved. Supposed to have a breakaway in case you catch your neck on something, a little breakaway.
I keep catching it on the table and I did it the entire
Just
time.
trying to
at the
help.
conference. So maybe I need another new lanyard because this one is it's not quite long enough. My other one like dangles down to my knees. It's really annoying.
We need to get you a pretty one.
Ooh, pretty one would be nice.
You
Well-
do have food around the corner.
Yes,
just
we
so
do.
you guys know there's
Oh yeah, we forgot to tell you
Yeah.
that. Sorry,
There's
food.
food.
There's fruit
Oh.
and vegetables for
Fruit and
you.
vegetables.
sandwiches.
And some
Trustee Quimby,
cheese.
there's specifically some turkey, just turkey,
Really?
just for you, just meat.
That's
just
nice.
for
Go
you.
get it.
Good deal.
Rebecca got it for you.
You get the turkey. Nah, I'm just kidding.
And I mean, this is just from a noob's perspective. I know typically from grade to grade to grade, you build on what you've been taught. So, I mean, respectfully, this story is this at 5th grade? Okay, so it's not gonna be every detail about this person. But is the focus more so that, you know, even what they're providing may not be accurate? Or is it, because I mean, to give a dissertation of his life, it's going to be a book, I would think. But maybe that's just my, I don't know.
So this is reading, and
Right.
the way that the standards are written, like this, what they're reading about in first grade, they don't build on those topics in second grade. It's truly just first grade appropriate stories that they practice making inferences, looking for details to
Okay.
support their answers, citing text evidence and the standards that are for the grade level. So
Right, but on our, like, history components that you learn in reading, you're gonna build on those. I mean, you don't.
not Diego Rivera, because
Okay.
he's in 5th grade, it's US history, and it's
Right.
mostly, we get through like we're lucky to get through the Civil War
Okay.
by the end of the year. So These are just this one is a story about a painter, and you know,
Right.
there's some history tied to it. While I was listening to you guys talking, I just was thinking, like, this textbook
Mhm.
really embodies what's going on in our country right now. Because prior to 2020, we read stories like Charlotte's Web in our
Right.
readers, and On Top of Spaghetti in our first grade book, and
Yeah.
you know, where
Yeah.
Down by the
I read
Bay,
those
and
books.
some of those kinds of fun things. And so this is, I'm having a hard time with this just because I feel like there's no way to get away from the little jabs of politics that are going on in our
Correct.
country. I don't know where to go with this.
Like I said, write your own. She's a doctor. Write your own curriculum. Yep, they have the same degrees as all the teachers in the district. So.
Our teachers would tell you they didn't go to school to learn how to write curriculum, so they don't want to do that.
That's
But there is
that's a job
curriculum.
title
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
in college now?
Yeah, there's a
Writing.
there's a master's in curriculum.
Really? You can get one. You guys can get one.
Wow, you could get one.
I know.
So this is, I just want you to know, I know that this is not gonna be, it's just not an easy decision, because
Right.
if we don't go with this program, any other program that we look at moving forward, we're gonna be dealing with the same issues. So how do we
Well, we have
mitigate
to-
some of this?
Yeah, I think we have to broaden our scope of looking. I mean, like, we all have time to do that, right? But I think, like you're saying, more of, a classical perspective, and I don't mean classical in the sense that some people use the term to go back to the classics kind of thing, but more of a classical,
A wholesome approach to
right,
teaching.
right, right, and they are out there,
Yeah.
they do exist.
I would tell you the best reading program we've ever had in the district was the first time we adopted Houghton Mifflin reading when I was still teaching first grade.
Mhm.
The text that our kids read, it was rich text written by real authors, and it was books that they could go into the library and pull off the shelf, and so they had little snippets.
Excerpts from,
Mhm.
okay.
So little snippets from Charlotte's Web or Little House on the Prairie, or some of that doesn't exist anymore. Now we're writing stories to try to hit home whatever the agenda
Yeah,
is.
whatever the agenda is.
Right,
yeah.
it's like, are even some of
That's
these people
known as
even real,
indoctrination.
you know?
Mhm.
And it cracks me up, so do you guys know the truth behind this photograph right here?
I don't
It's
know
always
that photograph.
iconic for the Dust Bowl. It's called Migrant Mother.
Mhm.
It's the lady with the two little kids. Well, it was found out years later that it had nothing. It became the icon of,
Poster child.
yeah, exactly, and that, but that wasn't when, picture has nothing to do with what they were up to. But anyways,
The other reality for us right now is if we don't figure out how to make use of this tool,
What are we doing?
yeah, we don't necessarily have a great reading program. We still have our textbooks that we adopted 7 or 8 years ago, collections and journeys. The collections was the 6 through 12, the journeys was the K through 5, all Houghton Mifflin. Our middle and high school people have been fine with their collections book. Our elementary teachers can't stand the journeys books.
why?
For whatever reason, they don't have these kinds of stories where people are writing the politics into the stories, but instead of taking excerpts from quality literature and putting it in front of kids, they've got people like Dave is saying, just go write your own program. So it's people who are not
Right.
published authors who are writing stories for kids to practice reading, but they're not necessarily interesting. They're not well written, and so it's not a great tool, but at least that one doesn't have all of the politics that are embedded in this one. So it's not an easy answer at this point.
But last night I did include for you the unpopular data in my email to you. So if you look over, I sent you all the historical, and we'll go into more detail, but if you look at our historical data, we continue to go down.
Yeah.
In all measures.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is probably due in large part to not having quality curriculum
Quality,
in
yeah.
the hands of our teachers and our kids.
Well, because they're being tested based upon that standard, and we could be giving them a great education, right? And they could be getting a quality education based upon what we know works, but being that everything has changed, then the tests change. It says, oh, no, you didn't cut it. You didn't meet that.
Right. Because
Right.
now our third graders have to type a 2-page essay.
Type it?
They have
Yeah.
to type it.
It's
They,
computerized.
they cannot handwrite it. They have to type it. They're 8-year-olds who type like this.
In
Well, my
addition
son
to
can't
that-
even write, so.
I'm sure he's happy you said that.
No, I'm
Let the
just
world
saying, he
know.
can't write. He can't write his own name, print it out nice. Because they got rid of cursive,
Well, we
they
still
got-
teach it. They just only do it in third grade.
Yeah, but they
because
don't
then they have to type
practice it.
everything.
Remember practicing cursive for like hours?
Right, but when you go out into the working world, nobody handwrites a report anymore. Everything is
know, but
online.
it's just.
Well, that's okay, but, to say that because of that fact, we shouldn't teach kids certain basic skills is not necessarily a truth.
And we are teaching them those skills,
Yeah.
but I don't think they use them as much as they used to use them after they've learned them.
Cause you're not using them all.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just personally have a problem with asking an 8-year-old to type a
Yeah.
1.5-page, 2-page essay. That's
Well,
part
yeah,
of the assessment.
then when they have to write something out, like an application or something, and they don't wanna do it because their handwriting is terrible,
write,
and
they
kids
can't
read
write.
it,
For ELA.
and then they don't have a PDF they can fill in.
Right.
Well, the other piece of that is, kids at younger and younger ages are, have access to phones and texting and all that kind of stuff, and that's
My
really
daughter's handwriting
detrimental
sometimes better than mine,
to
so-
learning good
Like,
writing skills, because you take all
Yours
kinds of
is?
shortcuts,
Mhm.
texting and that
Oh.
kind of.
Like a girl.
You should see spelling.
I get teased about it.
Texting has definitely
You
impacted
have
spelling.
pretty handwriting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So once again, society is pushing us in a direction that we don't wanna go and shouldn't be going,
Right.
but we're still being pushed.
What options
We
do
can
have?
push
What-
back
yeah.
though. I mean, there's
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
curriculum.
sure.
There's, and this could be, I guess, controversial too, but we could always look at the Heritage Foundation, which goes more, and we don't have to take everything, but maybe they're reading, it is more of a classical kind of approach to education. As far as the text and all those types of things, it's more neutral, I guess you'd call it. I mean, I would think it was more neutral. We wouldn't have to do this, I don't think, and there might be things. I was sad to see that, and he can be controversial too, but Dr. Ed Hershey does the common knowledge curriculum, but I think unfortunately this last year they sort of went down the slippery slope. But he has some great books, and they had great curriculum too, and most of it was free. They would come train, help you adopt everything. There is a couple of schools in Spokane that use pieces of their stuff. And he's an educator and everything else. I mean, he's been around forever. He wrote a few good books. One of them was called How to Educate a Citizen. And I agree with a lot of what he says, even though he has an odd background. But, talking about us getting so far away from removing your hat when you say the Pledge of Allegiance. The whole patriotic kind of.
Back to our
Yeah,
the core
thank
values
you,
of
no
our
thank
nation.
you, yeah, those kinds of things, but,
So the other thing, I guess just as a reminder that this is actually considered a supplemental resource because we do currently have the old adoption. because science is the next
Mhm.
content area that we're going to adopt, and then ELA comes after that.
Mhm.
So it's just a matter of, do we want this in our classrooms? Do we just want to stick with what we've got, even though at the elementary level it's just not great? But those are our options when we get to the point where we have to make a decision.
Do we have any teachers that have, because of their dissatisfaction with the current series, gone about trying to supplement with some of the more traditional stories and that sort of thing?
We have teachers who use novel studies, and those are the novels that you saw last year. That we have novel sets in the district. So where the red fern grows, Charlotte's Web.
Yeah.
They don't
Sarah
use an
Plain
anthology, they just
Sarah
go straight
Plain and
novels.
Which is great because you're putting great literature in front of kids, but what is lacking if that's the only tool, those are the tools you're using, is how do we make sure that the teacher understands which standards they're teaching through
Right.
that novel, and how are they drawing those standards out? Is it just, let's read, I'm gonna ask you some comprehension questions? That's nowhere in our standards anymore. The standards are about, I'm going to ask you a question, you need to be able to cite the text evidence to tell me how you know that that's the answer. So if we are not paying attention to the standards, one of the things we talked about doing was going back and looking for, they used to create, back in the olden days when I was in the classroom, you'd buy a set of novels and you would get a study guide that went along with it that the teachers
Right.
could use. So we talked about looking for those, to provide those for the novel sets that we do have in the district, to at least try to ensure that we're going down the right road, because it's great that our kids are reading good literature and they're enjoying reading, but we need to make sure that they're critically thinking about what they're reading, and they can make inferences, and they can identify the author's purpose, and all those comprehension things that we're responsible for. So we definitely have more teachers teaching from novels than we've ever had because of the dissatisfaction.
Well, I don't think we should discourage that. I think we ought to encourage it, but.
It's just hard for first year teachers without a study guide or a really good teaching
Right.
partner. It's
Yeah.
really hard.
Well,
don't learn that-
yeah,
that-
and
they don't
you're
learn that
teaching
in
a
their
lot more of the
college.
basic skills, at, in the
Right.
primary grades, but once you get to, fourth grade and up, then theoretically, you have reasonably good readers at that point in time, and you can begin to launch into some of that other stuff.
It's just figuring out how to do that and staying on top of that, because it's work, it's harder work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Your lesson
you don't have a
it's
cake already baked that you're
More
gonna
in depth.
work.
yeah, a
It-
lot of time.
Yeah, it
because now
requires
you're-
you to read it first,
Yep.
and as you're reading each chapter, thinking about your standards, okay, and what are we gonna do around the standards in this chapter? And it really does require a lot more
Versus-
intentional work on the part of the teacher.
Versus getting a script, essentially.
Mhm.
If you pull an anthology, it spells out what questions to ask. I mean, it's pretty scripted for you.
And we have the tools, I guess, for a first year teacher. The tool is the Journeys textbook right now. It's not great, but it provides the script, provides the text. But even for our veteran teachers, it takes time to put those units together and be thorough. So if we can find the study guides, that's one of the things on our list of things to do.
Yeah, one of the things.
Yep.
And some of the standards are so broad, it's like, okay.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean? And what does it look like when the kids are doing it?
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Just looking through some of them. Well, I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know there are things out there, but I don't know that they're gonna come from, just the typical publishers, because like you said, they're following the
Yep.
whatever the narrative is. I don't even know what the narrative is.
They have to be marketable
destroy
in all
America.
50
Right.
states, so
Right.
and there are some states that are requiring teachers to teach CRT, which means they've gotta provide that tool for those teachers, and then we've got a state like Idaho where it's illegal,
Mhm.
and now we have to weed through all of that, so
Mhm.
it's gonna be challenging. And we are just talking about a supplemental text right now, not a full-blown adoption.
Right.
I think when we get to that point, we need to look at some of what you're talking about, a more classical approach to what we're asking kids to read.
I guess the other thing I would throw out there is if we decide not to go with iReady for supplemental, I would still advocate for the standalone assessment, because otherwise we have no benchmark assessments for reading outside of K3. We would have no measure. And it's a standalone, it's not tied to a story, you know, it is just testing the content standards. So, and we can read all the story, you know, it might have a writing prompt and there's a story attached to it, but we could vet that piece, but we wouldn't have another measure for, especially 4, 5, well, and 6, 7, and 8, so, for ELA.
How's that work with Common Core? Cause iReady's Common Core, right?
Well, they actually, so they have Common Core books and then they just have content standard books. So it's not pushing the same thing, but the assessment is aligned just to the standards, so it's our specific standards. Like it will name RL5, and so it's a test question specific to that standard, so it's the way we ensure that the standards are being taught, and it's a benchmark for us to gauge how we're doing on those specific standards.
I'm just saying, like, a lot of that stuff says Common Core on it, right? But now there's a new bill that says they're not gonna use Common Core anymore.
Well, so Idaho adopted the Common Core standards.
Right.
And then in this just over the last like 2 or 3 years, they've had committees looking, and so they have gone in and made some changes to the standards that we've been teaching to, and they've been renamed the Idaho Content Standards. But there are still a lot of standards in there that were part of the Common Core standards. And I know Common Core has gotten a lot of bad publicity, but the one thing that I will tell you that it's done for us is to have some continuity across the country with regard to what are 5th graders learning, what are 4th graders learning, actually does help kids, because when we get kids coming into our district, and we've always had a high bar, so it doesn't matter what state they come from, they're typically behind when they come to Lakeland. But they used to be significantly behind simply because we weren't teaching the same standards at the same time. So it is helpful to kids that there's some, like, we're all teaching inference and author's purpose and some of those common comprehension type strategies. And so that has actually helped kids. That was the intent really behind, or at least one of them behind that. So Idaho has renamed our standards, and they're the Idaho Content Standards.
So they just renamed it, but it's still kind of Common Core.
Mm-hmm. They've made some changes to it, took some things out, added some things, but.
And these materials are aligned with those standards.
Correct.
Whereas the base curriculum is not necessarily aligned.
It's aligned because that was published after Common Core standards came out, so they're aligned. It's just that the stories are not really well written, and they're definitely not interesting for kids.
It's not rigorous either compared to what we get tested on.
When are we going to get into the position to adopt a new series?
I'll pull it up.
You wanna know the sequence?
I can't remember if we had social
So we
studies
had, it
before.
was science this next year, social studies
And then
year,
ELA.
and then ELA, so.
3 years?
But that's not set in stone. if the board feels like they wanna tackle ELA before we tackle social studies, we certainly could go.
And the series we have is 8 years old? No? No, that's definitely.
Our social studies series is probably twice as old.
But that being
Oh.
said, there's a, part of the standards is a nonfiction component, so a lot of the ELA is an integrated approach, so that nonfiction is gonna be historical for the most part, or science.
Or science.
Yeah.
Want me to get you something to eat?
Well, I would love something to eat.
What would you like? You want like a little bit?
Go.
You want one of those little
Nope, go.
sandwiches and
Go.
chips?
You can beat me.
Take a-
She took my shirt
I have
off.
Yep.
jerky
Let's take a break.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, wrestling for it. Oh, that's the wrong motion.
Yeah.
Tells everybody what to do and we're all right, so you know.
That one kinda is in my house too.
Alright, so,
What's next on our agenda?
are we good with moving off of iReady? We kinda seem to have a understanding that we have problems.
Absolutely, yep.
Concerns with some of the.
Very much
Mhm.
concerns. Okay, so then
Oh, this is our last item.
it is the curriculum handbook.
Oh, wait till you see this, you guys are going to love it.
I like this cover.
This is Lynn's brain kind of spilling onto paper.
It's great.
I know, I love the way her brain
Yeah.
works.
It's okay to say it's a little scary.
No, it's really good.
So I just, in doing policy, we've talked a lot about just kind of what our quality control is and where are we housing things and,
Yes.
as we've made various documents. And so I'm just trying to, and this is not obviously finalized, this is the first time you guys have seen it, but as we have created things, instead of having 20,000 different owners and it's found in one, like I'm trying to contain it all in one area. And so then, in my mind, at the point when we get through some of this and we know what our curriculum is and we don't have to spend so much time vetting the actual materials, then we can start looking at some of these pieces and, making tweaks and edits and, do this curriculum review process. Do we
Right.
like this?
Right.
Is this good? Do we
Right.
wanna add something? And, and again, I get right now, we are still spending so much time in the minutia of the curriculum, but hopefully at some point we can get to just, when we go through adoptions, do we like that process? Do we
Right.
wanna tweak it?
Right.
Because last year was the first time I did one and I kinda just.
It was the last year, it was the first year we all did one together.
Right,
Mhm.
so it was, well, I hope everybody likes this process.
Fly by the seat of your pants and
Yeah,
make it up
and
as you
so,
go, yeah.
just starting to, so then we're all on the same page with whatever our procedures are.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome idea. It's
Mhm.
great. I
Thank
think
you.
it's
Yep.
perfect.
Like it.
One spot, everything's there, everybody knows where to go, where, who was the last person to touch it and what was changed and.
And I kind of envision here specifically, like, I can see this, once you guys are good with everything, there isn't any reason why this isn't on our website, as a
Right, right.
PDF, and then those links are all PDFs. I mean, right now, it's still at the early stage, but once we've said that, then there's a page with all of this stuff, and it's where people go.
Mhm.
Because I even have the curriculum directory, and, but I'm even trying to build, I noticed last year, for our, special education and even for our title programs, they're using all of the adopted materials, but not everybody has the same materials. So some person is using VMath, some person is using Connecting Math, and again, that's gonna always be the case specific to kids. But they also don't have access to all of it. So, I mean, some building wrote a grant and got some additional things, and so trying to just get a pulse on who has what, so that if I have a student with dyslexia and I need a specific program, do we have it in the district and is it accessible to me? Because some of those programs are specific to a singular student. You wouldn't buy 15 of them because, so trying to house a place where what building has what as far as some of those really individualized programs. So,
We can better utilize those resources.
but when you don't know, you don't know, so.
One of the things we were wondering from the board's perspective under kind of where that curriculum adoptions information is as far as our curriculum directory, we could print out a list of every single book that we own in all 10 of our libraries. It would be about 15,000 pages front to back. I mean, it's massive. That we could put in a binder. But when we talked to the middle school librarians who are kind of our lead librarians for the district now, they wondered if we couldn't create a district library page on our website and have a link to Destiny, which is the search engine, and any patron could put a title in and search to see if that book is in our
You
library.
could see any book in any
Yes.
library.
Yeah.
Because
So
we
would
said
that
print
work?
them
Is that
all.
Rather than
Yes.
doing, why
Okay.
reinvent the wheel? If it already exists, then that makes
And they
way
kind of wanted
more
to,
sense.
personalize the page and put some additional
Right, yeah.
things on there, but
Sure.
we just thought
That's
this would be
beautiful.
so great that you would be able to look at any,
Well, and it would help, like, if I'm like, hey, do we have this book in the library? And then I have to go to you, and then you have to go to someone else, and so if I could just type it in and go, oh, we do?
right.
Yeah, that would be
And
Yeah,
they
that's
could,
awesome
They could highlight
incredibly
their
helpful.
battle of the books.
Right.
These are the battle of books this year. Put a team together. Because we're Lakeland's going to host it, and so so anyway, they
I
wanted
like that.
they thought that would be a good idea, but they wanted us to run that by you.
Oh, yeah.
They were super excited about it.
Oh, I bet. That's a great idea.
Every once in a while we can.
Would that identify which library it's in? Or?
Yep, it'll tell you exactly, and if there's more than one, so it will, hands me to tell you to pull it up and it says Lakeland High School and Timberlake High School.
Yeah.
And then I think it even gives you how many copies of it we have. Instead of printing and then you're sifting through tiny little script.
So I will ask them to work with Dane to create
Can
their
you scroll down just a
page.
little bit, I
Yes.
wanna see, or up, yes.
I am curious if it's a necessity. I don't know. That's why I'm kind of throwing it out there. And looking at the board approved curriculum, and you've got it segregated: reading, writing, math, social studies, science. What isn't there is what school it's being utilized at. Is there a need to have that there?
Well, we kind of said if it was approved and if we didn't have, if 5 schools wanted to use it, we just put it under the one that asked and then said it's available to the 5.
Okay.
I could specify who's doing what. That's kind of what the district curriculum library is trying to build some of those. Those are the bigger programs though.
Okay.
Well,
I'm just curious. Do we think there's a need for it? Because if what I hear you telling me, because I just know that when we get the pages and then it's specific to the school,
Right.
and then this has no school affiliation. The piece you just said I never knew was that, say a book or something is approved for Twin Lakes, it is available to all of the elementaries. I did not know that.
and
So-
to make that, we just, instead of having all 5 ask for the same thing,
Right.
now our list gets even longer.
Right.
We just said, okay, if you all want it, we'll put it on one.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So
and
yeah, then I
sometimes
guess,
we've said all schools, but, if 2 people ask, I just put it under one and.
so that's a good, that's something good to know, because I did not realize that, which it doesn't matter one way or the other. I just, that's really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that idea, central location webpage on the website. That's awesome. I wish we got more notification from the school, the board or myself, more notifications from when the kids win all these different little things they're doing, because I just read one and I don't even remember what school it was. I read it yesterday and I thought it was the Coeur d'Alene Press, but it might have been something else about one of our schools. The kids competed in, I want wanna say math, but it might not have been math. Anyways, they won some competition and they did really well, and I just remember, I'll have to, if I find it again, I'll send everybody
Yeah.
the link to it. But there were, one of the schools, it was some competition here recently,
Yeah.
in the last month or so, I think. I don't know if it was outside of school or, it seemed like it was a club, some kind of club. I'll show you it here.
Yeah, I would like to be able to focus for the board a little bit more on the academic, successes that
Yeah.
in those, academic clubs. Cause our athletes get a lot of press time, but our scholars don't always, and so I
Are you
would like
talking-
to bring that to the board's attention.
Sorry, is that
Yep.
the Lakeland Legacy Award winners? Is that what you're talking about? It just came out on June 15th. Addison, Kiefer, Colin, Kelly, Richie, Thomas.
Yeah, I did see that. That was one
Okay.
thing, but there was something else, and
Those
because
were-
I
those
did,
were athletes.
yeah, I did see
the
that one, but there was something else. It
Relevant
was,
programs too,
Yeah, Corey's.
Cause they go to the state and regional and all
I
that.
don't even remember what I was reading or
And
what
I
I was
will say, when we've
researching
done
on
our
that, so.
ALP nights, we did 3 this year for our, upper echelon.
Mhm.
They were very well attended, and it's a family night, so we did a crime lab and like science, kinds of stuff, and law enforcement came and did a little lab about fingerprinting and what that
Oh,
looks
that's cool.
like, and
Yeah.
how you dust and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a little. The kids had a super great time, but it's a family deal, super well
Mhm.
attended. We did 3 this year, so
So make sure you get invited to those.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
yeah, that'd be awesome, because we just don't know.
Mhm.
Right,
you know,
right.
we don't-
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just
Uh,
make sure those end up on your calendar so that
Yeah, that would be great.
you know what's happening.
Yeah, they're super fun nights. The teachers do a really great job. We do a different theme each
Mhm.
time, and it's fun.
I'm excited about the library thing here.
Mhm.
That's so cool.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Very excited.
Yeah. And I love the curriculum handbook, what you got going here, that's just awesome.
Good, because I did the same thing with our data for next week. I just
She's
like
got a
having it
format down,
all
so.
Yes.
in one place, and then it's not lost. But I guess I know we didn't make any decisions tonight, so
Right.
on here there is SOS, there is Second Step, there
Sure.
is iReady, ELA. Like I know we adopted
Right.
iReady Math, but so if we're gonna make changes to that, there are 3 things that we have denied thus far. 2 library series and then the Thrively from last week. So I started denied on here as well, so that people don't have to go
That's
searching.
Awesome.
So the moment we had those 2, then it's the very last one. If you go to the very bottom, the arrow,
Yeah, the very last tab at the bottom.
yeah,
Oh, I can't see, sorry.
right there. So denied curriculum. And so I just put them in there so that people don't have to try to figure out, and it's just,
Yeah.
there's clarity attached to it, so. This just helps everybody.
Yeah, there are a few other books that we have said, no, let's go ahead and pull those off, so I don't know.
But did they ever come through the actual supplemental curriculum, or was it, which other ones did we say no to?
I don't remember any. of
There
those.
was, let me pull it up. Cause I don't remember the name. It was the, Charlie and the
That's-
Mouse?
That's
No,
yeah, I think
not the Charlie Joe Jackson series. It's not that one. It's, cause that was, no. Easier to find it this way.
Did it have mouse in it?
I think so.
It would be under library books. Those are the only 3 that I remember.
Charlie and Mouse.
We denied that one.
I thought we did.
I can go back and look, and when we
That
brought
sounds familiar to me.
when we brought it to you, and then look at have Rosanna look at the board deal. So Charlie and Mouse, I don't remember that.
was concern about gender ideology in that book.
I don't remember any of this. I'll
It's
look.
okay.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I think it was on our midnight board meeting. I'm not sure.
Was there any others that you think of?
I just knew that one was a.
Okay.
We'll look up Charlie, we'll try and find it. Might be easy to look through your parent notes to find kind of when that would have been, when it come up, so to help us find the board meeting.
I was looking to see if anything.
June 15th.
That's when we denied it? That's when we talked about it.
What was when it was talked about?
A motion to approve the supplemental resources with the exception of the Shredderman series and the Charlie and Mouse series.
So did I get the wrong
Was
one?
made by
I grabbed the
Trustee
wrong
Jones
one.
and
I think I
seconded
grabbed
by
the wrong
Trustee
one.
May.
Will you
That
go
might
back
be.
to denied curriculum?
Yeah, cause you have Charlie.
I
and-
have Charlie Joe Jackson,
Yeah.
so
and
I
don't-
just grabbed the wrong one. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't remember that one, but
Good catch,
we
Michelle.
go through a lot, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good memory.
Well, when I pulled up that title, I'm like,
I
that's
don't
not the
remember
Charlie
that
title
one.
that I.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That I looked at.
Thank you. I'll switch it out.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm pretty sure we've only denied 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you had some opt-in specific to some secondary books.
Right.
Michelle, your memory is amazing.
No, it is not.
You
Once in a
even-
while I get a little spark,
You
but
even
beyond
knew-
that,
You knew it was the midnight meeting too. That's what
Yep,
impressed me.
And you knew why we didn't approve it.
Yeah.
I just looked up the review and I was like, "Yeah, there it is."
Well, I do appreciate all the work that went
Yes.
into
Tons of work,
this,
all of it.
curriculum handbook. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Rock stars.
We're a
Yeah,
good team.
we're getting our feet under us a little bit and kinda getting these little things dialed in.
That's right. One step at a time.
Yep.
Just keep going.
We don't know how to stay still, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Which is why I hate being on planes.
We are hoping to bring to the
Start doing
board,
this.
at the August board meeting, some, our request for pilots for the science textbooks for this next school year. And I anticipate that we will have to read through them
Yeah.
carefully.
With a fine tooth comb.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is we have we can have some parents that participate in the monthly meetings, but
Mhm.
they'll
Well-
take a grade level and go through the pieces as well.
Yeah, half of our committee must by statute be non-educators. So even if we have teachers who are
And there
parents,
has to
or
be
parents who are teachers in
parents.
another district,
Mhm.
they still count as a teacher.
Okay.
They have to have no ties to education, so it will be a little bit challenging for us
Mhm.
to get enough parents to participate.
Yeah.
My mom's reading some curriculum.
Make Chris read some.
Get some retired
Yeah,
teachers to
just
do
read
it.
that over.
Do it.
They're still
They're still
educators.
educators.
Mhm.
They're retired though.
It doesn't matter, they're educators.
Bob can't do it.
Nope.
Sorry, Bob.
No Bobberinos.
What'd I do?
You can't do
He
curriculum.
says what?
Science
Can't do
curric-
curriculum
for
review.
science.
For adoptions.
He's going, aw shucks. So
Yeah, don't
sad."
even bother reading it, cause you can't, your voice doesn't count.
I can look at the pictures.
Make sure there's no mating worms.
Rebecca did a really good job on that.
I didn't know that's what they did. Never really cared.
No, yeah, no, yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know that I really want.
I bet you that's probably that would be a high interest reading passage for first graders because they're fascinated by bugs. So,
Bugs.
So I picked Katie up from daycare when she was not even, probably right about 2. And she was telling me about how her and her friend dug worms up in the playground. And I said, what do you do with the worms? And she goes,
They're in her pocket.
yeah. Oh, wow.
I have a couple stories, but I'm not gonna tell them because we're still recording.
Oh, yeah. You're right, we are.
Yeah, so the
'Kay.
committee, the new committee has to contain a membership of half of which is persons who are not public educators or school trustees and shall include parents of a child or children attending a school or schools within the district. All meetings of the committee should be open to the public. Any member of the public may attend the meeting and file a written or make an oral objection to any curricular materials under consideration. Blah, 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 and then we know the rest. We have to have all of the curriculum on hand, and available to the public. The titles, authors, publishers of all curricular material being used in the district. And of course, the public has a right to inspect the instructional materials except student tests, obviously, used in the district schools. So we have to make sure that half of those people include parents and whomever else.
Mhm.
They don't really meet though, do they? Aren't they just coming and getting material and taking it?
We
and-
met monthly.
Oh,
We
really?
did the math.
Oh, okay.
And actually, the parents who participated.
Oh, the math, that's
the
right, you
math
did.
adoption, they had a lot of voice and had a really great perspective to share, so
Yeah.
I felt like it was helpful.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just,
great.
I feel like the teachers felt like it was helpful too.
yeah, it's just that we typically have so many teachers who want to be involved in the adoption of the materials that they're going to be using.
Yeah.
That we have to be able to match one-to-one,
Yeah.
one parent for every teacher, where we might have to limit the number of teachers, so.
And we try to have every building represented and we wanna
Right.
cover every
All grade
grade.
levels.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, if the curriculum committee comes up with, this is what we're thinking, there's no reason why we can't also vet it through all of the teachers just to say, give us your feedback from an educator perspective. So if we're not able to have multiple on the committee, then, cause we can't, I don't wanna even though the statute says what it says, I don't wanna proceed with the focus that those that actually have to teach the material don't have a say in it.
And we have done that in the past where we've kind of, whatever the programs are we're looking at, we
Mhm.
have moved them around the district and they've been housed at schools so teachers have time to peruse the materials, look through the teacher's guides.
Mhm.
So we have done that.
And some of them have even been willing to, you know, take on a lesson while it's in their building for, you know, a couple of weeks just to get a sense of it, cause just looking at it is not the same as actually trying to implement, so.
Right.
Huh.
Alright, do we have any other dialogue that we wanna have over the incredible curriculum handbook?
Looks good.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a dynamic starting point. Alrighty, well then, with that being said, we can bow out and close the workshop. Everybody ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
It's 8:57.